af, met raad en saam, met lyding en hoop, verdriet en saam staan jy staan. Jy is altyd daar. Dit wat ons doen, ons liefdes, ons vreugdes, ons plekke, ons thuistes, tot daar waar ons reis, jy is daar. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou het sy, met die boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Al verander straatname, al word helde laat val, ons is steeds stuur ons adem, ons kultuur, ons verhaal, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou sy, met die boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, in Afrikaans vir ons mense. Ons is daarmee gebore, die taal waarvoor ons staan, dit vloei deur ons are, ons kinders praat het saam, dit sal altyd bestaan. Afrikaans is ons wese, dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou sy, met die boodskap daarby, en waar jy is. Dis die taal waarin ons groet, die taal is in ons bloed, is Afrikaans, vir ons mense. En ek stuur vir jou sy, met die boodskap daarby, en waar jy is, sal jy dit kry, en Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense. Afrikaans vir my mense. Afrikaans vir ons mense.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back once again to Adopt Africa. Yes, this is in fact Chris with the crazy hair. I've been out and working my lawn, didn't feel like brushing it. Had originally not intended to do a stream, although I say that and I usually wind up doing one. But I have to admit, I came in late and I caught the end of Bianca van Wyk on Bernardo Host's program. And I'm a little triggered. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but is anybody else triggered? Gus, I'm with you, man. Giselle really probably can't calm down the anger a lot of people are feeling right now. Talk about some serious self-loathing, disingenuous, garbage, gobbledygook. I'll go back and watch the whole thing, but what a bunch of nonsense. Oh my goodness. Hey, Stella Mans, good to see you there. Christine, Raptorman, Hendo, Pina, Van Wyk. Pinar, I don't blame you for this Bianca van Wyk. She's clearly a distant relation at best. Tony Nagy up there in Canada in the Great White North. Hey, take off, hey, you hoser. Yeah, I'm going to have some maple syrup. Yeah, that's right. Hey, Tony, good to see you up there. Marinas Bota, there you go. Good, I did say I would come on, Marinas, and so here we are. Sloat, good to see you again. Swearum DJ, who else we got there? Pierre Duplessis. Triggered indeed, ladies and gentlemen. I am so triggered that it's already time to pull out my therapy, Hemsbach. Here you go. This is Wilbur, my therapy, Hemsbach. And he's helping me get through that experience right there. There you go. Yes, yes, yes. But it's not enough. My usual therapy Hemsbach and the relief provided by Wilbur in his kind, gentle fashion is not enough. I've had to pull out my little buddy, my ever-present on my rucksack, Springbok buddy there, that hangs off my rucksack and has traveled all over the world with me to every Rugby World Cup and all around the world in my travels professionally. My little buddy right there hangs off my rucksack. I had to bring him out for therapy. And then I pulled all the stops out because I was so triggered that I pulled out my dear friend Pikachu. So Pikachu is here with me, helping me get through this, try to get through this whole thing. So folks, welcome aboard. Can everybody hear me okay? If we got anybody that's having trouble with the sound, I just want to make sure. Not much I can do about it, but I think the sound should be good. There you go. There you go. Yeah, no, Wesley's right. After that, my poor therapy Hemsbach is going to be bald. He's going to have little bald patches on him from stroking the guy. Sorry about that, Wilbur. Let me put you over there. Ladies and gentlemen, are you triggered? Pissed off? Angry? Yes, I get it. Wow, I did not even watch the whole hour, and I have a headache already from just that brief little bit. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the disingenuous arguments about people. She says that she's not disturbed by President Ramaphosa's racism, his bigotry, and his stereotyping of 4.8 million South Africans, including her. I'm just really, really puzzled by that. Yeah, Raptor Man says, my hair is as fiery as your personality. Leave it alone. Okay. Oh, it's my personality, yeah. Hello, Jacques. Good to see you there. Yeah, no. Wow. You know, it's Sunday. I thought we'd all wind down, relax. Those of you in Africa, Southern Africa, it's evening time in Gaborone, in Cape Town, in Nelson Mandela Bay, Peter Maritzburg, wherever you might find yourself tonight. It's evening. You should be able to calm down, have a relaxing evening. And then I turn on the Sunday service with Ronaldo. And I was late. I came in about 40 minutes late. So, wow, if I'd spent the entire hour there, I'd probably be climbing the walls right now. Whew. Those of you who are watching the stream, you saw me jump in there late, and I didn't hold back with comments. I jumped in, had quite a few things to say. So let's get right to it. Who wants to... Did anyone notice how she flicked her? No, I missed that part, Z. So Wesley says the sound is good. Great. Listen, if you want to say something about this conversation between Ronaldo and Bianca van Wyk, please do so. You can just say it in there. If you feel compelled to do it with a super chat, then we'll emphasize it and spend time on it. If you just want to talk about it, let's do it. Robert Zede says, I watched Bianca's story. She doesn't understand what racism is. I don't think she understands what life is there based on what I saw, Robert. Totally out of touch. It's kind of like I responded to someone on one of the videos I did. I think it might have been the video about Becky Tsele, talking about the police minister talking about some of the nonsense he was saying. And they said, basically the words were something like this. It was an Afrikaans surname, and it was a lady, and she basically said, and if you're here now, please come in the chat if you want. You don't have to. But she said something along the lines, I don't know what racism is, and she started talking about race and all that, and I'm like, excuse me? Okay, I've lived around the world. I've experienced racism. I've been an extreme minority in places and been a victim of racism. I've seen other people perpetuate it, and I've put a stop to it in places. I've lived in so many places, in a majority position, in a minority position, in poverty, in not wealth, but relative modest means. And so I have experienced this on all sides of the fence, and I detest it. But for rich, white, privileged liberals to act as if all of us grew up with super large swimming pools and got a car handed to us at 16 and went to an elite private school where we wore spiffy little suits like we were part of Harry Potter series, that's not the life most of us know. Certainly not in this country. That's a distinct minority of people in this country. And I realize private schools is very different in South Africa, and many people, especially white people, did grow up in privilege in South Africa, but that's not all white South Africans. That's not all coloreds. It's not all blacks. But for people like this, who clearly are a little bit confused about the life, I'm really puzzled by this. Anyway, so get her to watch Communist Plan for South Africa's White Population. I'm not familiar with that, my new name. William Vanderveld says, how's it, Chris? I thought Bianca was a typical central to far left person. She's out of touch with reality and misinformed. What I found interesting is I saw the Conscious Caracal was in the conversation, and he pointed out that she blocked him on Twitter, and he never said anything to her or posted on her channel, which means to me that this is not a genuine person. She's not interested in discourse. I don't block people on my channel. I block anybody here. In fact, those of you tuning into the stream earlier today will notice that UCD had some comments, and they were deleted by one of my moderators. And my moderator didn't do anything wrong. It wasn't malicious. But I saw the comments, and I read them. I revealed them in my stream so I could see them. And I didn't think there was anything particularly wrong with it. It was just challenging my guest. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. So I specifically made a point of including UCD's comments. Now, my guest Phil is kind of like me. He can talk. He makes coffee nervous. He can talk for a long time without taking a breath. So what I did is I got in the chat and said, hang in there, UCD, don't go away. I'm going to make sure your comments are addressed. And I did, because it's about discourse. Unless somebody's being abusive or offensive, there's no reason to block their ideas. And I don't do that. Now, this woman clearly is not interested in anyone else's ideas. She has a worldview that is skewed and is frankly wrong. And she's unwilling to discuss it with anyone who wants to debate her. I'm shocked that she came on Ronaldo's channel. She must be looking for more Twitter followers. By the way, I have actually tried to connect with this woman over LinkedIn some time ago. I thought I'd share that with you guys. So this is what it looks like. I don't know if you can see that very well. Bianca van Wyk, skills trainer, facilitator, coach, mentor, and strategic project coordinator in the Johannesburg area. And it says she has over 500 connections. And she's an independent consultant with the University of South Africa, Universiteit van South Africa. But you'll notice up there, there's a little light blue. It says pending. Now that's because I requested a connection to her. I don't recall the exact date, but it has been some time ago. It certainly wasn't last month or so. And I've not seen a response from her. Now, if people don't respond after a week or 2 or 3 or something like that, maybe they're busy. But after a few months, you clearly don't want to have a connection with someone. If you look at my profile on LinkedIn, why would anybody object to who I am or what I have to say or what I'd like to discuss or be connected to me in a professional sense? There's no basis for that unless you're unwilling to have a coaching conversation. Now, I'm not saying she's unwilling because I've never interacted with her, but I saw her conversation and how she completely ignored points that Ronaldo made. Now, remember, folks, Ronaldo is a liberal. Ronaldo's not some right-wing, fascist, racist kind of South African. He's very much a liberal, although he's shifted more to the center of late. And she couldn't even address the very real things that Ronaldo said to her. So there you go. All right, so let me see. Let me get over here and see what else. She refused to answer any political question. Absolutely. Who is this Bianca? I don't know who that is, Myrnis. She's there you go. There's the LinkedIn that shows you her profile. Apparently she makes money as some kind of consultant for businesses. God forbid the businesses that hire her. What exactly are they learning? Huh? What are they learning? That's a retract. Okay, so refused to answer any questions. They just want to be fashionable. Yes, just like Nancy Pelosi, who appropriated kente cloth and put it around her neck and took a knee. And now she wants to remove statues from the halls of Congress. 9 of the 11 statues that she wants to remove are of Democratic members of Congress. That's right. So she wants to remove members of her own party. So what is she ashamed of? Her own party? Actually, yes, the Democratic Party of America has a lot to be ashamed of. This is the party of Andrew Jackson, the first Democratic president, who removed Native Americans from the eastern part of the United States and forced them to march to Oklahoma on the Trail of Tears. That's right, stole their lands. That's absolutely correct. Criminalized those who remained behind and refused to leave. Andrew Jackson. And it was also the Democrats in the South who largely went for secession to leave the United States. Funny, I mentioned secession. We had a secession conversation earlier today on the stream when Phil Craig came on to talk about the Cape Independence Advocacy Group. So different secession. We fought a bloody civil war to keep our union, and the union won. Very different situation. Hopefully that's not something South Africa will experience. Hendo says, I don't have patience for liberal left wing anymore. Yeah, but you can't ignore them because they own the media. They run far too many governments. They are insidiously entrenched in bureaucracies around the planet and even in uniform, police and military. That's right. I have German colleagues who say the most outlandish leftist things. And when I say something that doesn't, if I had a conversation with German colleagues, an officer, a senior officer, and I didn't adequately trash Donald Trump in that person's view. And so that pretty much ended our friendship. I didn't endorse Donald Trump. I didn't say it was great. I just pointed out something that this person said that was inaccurate and said, no, that's not true. Trump never said or did that. This is what actually happened. And the basis of that was the end of the conversation. You cannot deal with people like this. They're emotionally stunted. Emotionally stunted. Yep. So Tian says, yeah, they do that because they think their ideas are above politics. Well, they're not. They are the politics, and they're the problem. Respect for not blocking. Well, thank you, Swearim. I don't do that unless somebody's abusive. Or, let's be honest, during the chat earlier, those of you who were here, some of you guys are getting a little bit chippy. I know it was just good jocular fun amongst the boys and fellas, but some folks didn't find it particularly funny. It wasn't rude, disrespectful, just kind of making jokes about each other. And so I asked you to behave, and to everyone's credit, people behaved. They cleaned up their act in the chat, and I appreciate that. That won't always be the case, but that's why we have moderators in case someone goes off the deep end. And the spring, I got it. Come on, chat. Come back, chat. Where's the chat? My chat got away from me there. Raptor Man says, as a South African, I just want to say, I've had way too much coffee for talk about racism, but let's go. No, we're not talking about racism. We're talking about liberal, disingenuous, intellectual dishonesty. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't have to be about racism. Bianca von Vikes hates to be white. I think she hates to be alive based on the way she reacts to people. Let's see. Yes, many liberals complain about privilege, yet they always go back to their privileged lifestyles. Absolutely right. Of course, we know that, what's his name there? Al Gore famously complains about the climate and environment, yet he flies in a private jet with only one other person on the aircraft beyond the pilot to all of his world events, and doesn't see the irony of the emissions he's putting out if he believes in climate change. Now, they're all liberal hypocrites, leftists. Now, there are people on the right who are hypocrites too and are just into this for fame and money, but the preponderance of people who are disingenuous are far more on the left. And we saw it. Did anybody see? I think folks saw it. I think Ronaldo showed yesterday where somebody spoofed the video of those useless celebrities talking about, and then someone spoofed it. It was hilarious. Hilarious. Let's see. In her description, it looks like she enjoys telling people what to do. She does. That's what leftists do. They like to tell you how to live your life, what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to like, where you're supposed to be, and how much of your money you're supposed to give to them. And then, of course, you're supposed to feel guilty for having that money because clearly you earned it, whether you're black, white, blue, or green, because of unfair advantage. Utter nonsense. Pinar von Vijk says Ronaldo was a lefty, not anymore. Yeah, Ronaldo was farther to the left. He definitely isn't anymore. I think he's woken up a bit there. Cringe Pelosi. Yes, Pelosi is cringeworthy. I am the droid they were looking for, Raptor Man. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. The great and powerful Oz. Paulie says, your guest tomorrow, Unati, would have eaten her for breakfast. Won't be able to tune in live tomorrow. Oh, you must be at the fire station. But we'll watch after 1. I guess that's what it was. Unati is the essay version of Candace Owens. I've heard that. So, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow on my stream, another special feature live stream. Wow, that's 4 days consecutive of special features. On Friday, I had Toyin Usemari, who is a Nigerian-American businesswoman. We talked about trade in Africa and entrepreneurialism. Very good stream. We went for a long time, folks. If you want to watch it, it was about 2 hours. But tune in. It was really good throughout the stream. You can watch parts of it. So that was Friday. Then yesterday, I had not a special feature, but I had my regular live stream with the Conscious Caracal, and that's Ernst von Seil. And then today, I had my special guest talking about Cape Secession because my subscribers keep asking for it. So I had a stream about Cape Secession, and I'm a skeptic, but I found the argument compelling. So I will take a deeper look at it. But today, my guest was Phil Craig, and that was another special feature. And yet tomorrow, I'll have another guest, and that will be Unati Kwaza. Unati Kwaza, I don't know how she pronounced it, so I'll ask her when I speak to her. Unati or Unati Kwaza. She's a businesswoman from the Western Cape, and yes, based on her surname, you probably guessed that she's black. She is. And she has a huge Twitter following. And Paulie keeps describing her as the Candace Owens of South Africa. Well, that would be fascinating because I do find Candace Owens to be a refreshing voice on the political scene, although sometimes I find her a little grating. But I think she's pretty amazing nonetheless. So I'm looking forward to listening to what Unati has to say. We're going to talk about her businesses and about her experiences and where she sits. The few things I've seen about her, she has a great distaste for the ANC, I believe. And so we're in good league right now. So we'll see what happens. Robert Zede said there's a law against... What's this? Law against... I think what Robert's pointing out... Oh, what's that? What's that? Whoa, the zombie's on the move. There it is. Look at the zombie is climbing the Mahalisberg, ladies and gentlemen. He's climbing there almost to the top. Thank you, Slot Steenkamp. 14 Rand super chat. Thank you, sir. My first ever super chat. Yeah, isn't it cool? It's actually kind of fun. Now I get how those people sit and pull those one-armed bandits all the time in a slot machine. They just keep putting money in, hoping something will come out. Well, here with your super chats, hopefully you'll get to hear something interesting and thought-provoking or compelling. And that's the idea. So thanks for the super chat, Sloat. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I remember my first ever super chat, too. I won't disclose which channel it was on, but it was kind of cool. I actually enjoyed it. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the super chat there, Sloat. I really appreciate it. So it's almost like a stripper chat because you didn't really ask anything. You just told us your first super chat. So that's kind of cool. Let's see. So Pelosi should retire 25 years ago. Whoops, I missed a few things there. Pelosi should retire. Let me get back to that. Whoa, Gus. Get to that in just a second. Let's see. Would love to see you do a stream with... Okay, listen, guys. Okay, Pinar von Vijk, I would be happy to do a live stream with Big Daddy Liberty. What I ask of you is if you follow Big Daddy Liberty, please go to his channel and mention me to him. People have been saying this to me for a month. I have written to the gentleman 4 times, to an address that's listed on his YouTube channel. He's never responded, so I can only guess that the email address is not one that he checks. Whoa, there it is. Gus, 140, ran through the super chat. Look at that. The zombie is climbing the hill. Oh, he didn't quite make it to the top. Well, thank you so much, Gus. What does Gus have to say? Not much in COVID crippled mode. Thanks for speaking up. No, that's a lot, man. No, thank you so much for that, Gus. It's thoroughly unnecessary, folks. This effort by the ANC to destroy South Africa's economy is really frustrating, and it's really appreciated. Any super chats, not necessary, but thank you all so much. Very kind of you to offer that super chat up. Thank you so much. So yeah, Gus and I were both very much triggered, I think, in Ronaldo's show as we responded to each other. The good news is there's a lot fewer viewers on this channel right now, so you get a chance to get your comments and questions in there. Let me see. Yeah, back to Big Daddy Liberty. So somebody gave me a different email address for Big Daddy Liberty a few days ago, about 3 or 4 days ago. I'm sorry, I forget who gave it to me. And I sent an email to that address, and I've yet to hear from Big Daddy Liberty. Now, I'm not saying Big Daddy Liberty is ignoring me, or he doesn't want to come on my channel, or he doesn't want me to come on his channel, because everyone that I've met in this sphere of South African discussion on YouTube has wanted to either have me come on their channel or come on my channel. So I don't imagine that's the case with Big Daddy Liberty. I've subscribed to his channel a long time ago, and I watch his videos. But I'm not going to go on his channel and go, hey, can I come on your channel? You know, I'd really cool if you come on my channel. I have written to the gentleman professionally, and I've yet to hear from him. So those who interact with Big Daddy Liberty, if you really want to see me on there, then please, Kathleen Negrini. Now that's potentially an Italian name, I'm guessing, Negrini. Anyway, well, thank you for subscribing, Kathleen. Yes, so if you want me on Big Daddy Liberty or him on my channel, I'm going to ask you guys to be the go-between. Be my booking agent. Please feel free to be my booking agent and go talk to him, okay? All right, so let him know. Tian asked, have I changed my view on secession? Although you did like I did. I had a spelling error because I typed secession and it corrected my spelling to succession. That's not secession is what we're talking about. And Tian, yeah, I have not changed my view. I need to do more research, but I do find the argument compelling. And the position that Phil Craig and his group are taking is interesting. And I think they do have a point that you could probably more rapidly secede from South Africa than you could ever get the ANC to relinquish power on a national basis. So, interesting. But I have not changed my position. I'm going to think about it more. Tian says Unati for president. Oh, interesting. Ronaldo's libertarian online test. Yeah, no, I took the test with him. Exactly. I did take the test with him, Tony. And in fact, on my stream, when I interviewed him, I brought up both those graphics to show where we were politically and economically. And Ronaldo was almost on the center. I was to the right, especially when it came to the authoritarian trend, because I'm a rule of law kind of person. Yeah, we weren't that far apart. Marius Krukamp donated 14 Super Rand. Super Rand, yeah, Super Mario. 14 Rand through Super Chat. Thank you so much for that, Marius. That's very kind of you. So, yes, I got off track there. You guys are the Super Chats. Just throw me off. Thank you for that. Thank you for the Super Chats. I'm not complaining, but every time a Super Chat comes up, I want to make sure that I recognize the people who generously gave. And we still got Gus's 140 big Super Rand Super Chat donation sitting up there. Yeah, so thank you, Marius Krukamp. That's an interesting name. Marius says, great content, Chris White. Much appreciated. It is my pleasure. I hope people enjoy it. And remember, this is for everyone. I'm not just simply focused on one specific group of folks here. My concerns are for all South Africans. I'm trying to get a Tswana-speaking South African on my channel. I'm waiting to hear back from that person. Talk a little bit about that, and tomorrow we have Unati. I'm happy to talk to all South Africans as long as they're respectful and reasonable. But I'd even bring Bianca van Wyk on here, but I suspect it might break out into an e-fight between the two of us because I would have a hard time sitting here patiently listening to the cock that she's shoveling. Anyway, excuse me. So yeah, I've taken that test, Tony. Yep. Let's see. William Vanderwalt says, another typical lefty tactic I saw on the stream was cherry picking history. Lefties only talk about the history that suits their narrative. Yes, that's absolutely correct. As Ronaldo pointed out, the inability to address slavery. You know, I'm so sick of hearing about reparations in this country when we have 75 million people living in slavery around the world today, the vast majority of whom are sexual slaves run by syndicates and disgusting people who sell people into bondage. It's not just that, though. They're also slaves in other countries where they break apart ships. little kids and things like that, indentured labor. Yeah, and all we hear about is in this country, reparations, but no discussion of the historical and contemporary role of slavery in society. And it's also as if Europeans invented the slave trade. No, the slavery existed for thousands of years before the Europeans came up with the transatlantic slave trade and purchased their slaves from other Africans who rounded them up as a consequence of raids or bounties or wars. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to get into slavery discussion, but yeah, that's an interesting topic. Sorry, my throat's caught here. Dodbreaker says, evening, I don't think we'll ever break through because of a training tactic called the struggle session, a form of public humiliation torture that was used by Chinese People's Committee Maoists. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of truth to what you're saying there, Dodbreaker. But the thing is at least a third of the electorate in any given country is not part of this and can be influenced. And so you have to go after the people that aren't brainwashed. 70 questions in the 8 values test. Yep, need more coffee. I don't think she so much refused to answer, but she couldn't answer as the questions didn't fit her blinkered view. Yeah, no, that's probably true, Carol. Hi, Carol. Welcome to see you there. I don't recall if we've seen you in here before. Wise Inspector. Well done, Sluts. What else we got here? This chat just jumps ahead there. It's very frustrating. All right, so did you know about anything about the opportunity zones in South Carolina and if that could apply to South Africa? I'm not sure which ones you're talking about, Pinar. Those are usually economic things. South Carolina had some things in order to get Mercedes, and I don't know if Mercedes came, but BMW did build a plant in South Carolina, and that may be what you're talking about. But that's not based on immigration. That was based on investment. So unless you're talking about something else. Robert says the law against whites in this country. He mentioned that before. I'm not so sure what he's getting at. Raptor Man's asking you to hit the like. Please do hit the like, folks. Political Compass less test told you you're a right libertarian. Okay, William, you're close to where I'm at most likely then. All right. Cheers, Rap. Okay. In Afrikaans we pronounce it. Okay. Oh, okay, Dodbreaker. You're a funny fellow there. In Afrikaans we pronounce it, and of course he spells it. It's not exactly like coming out phonetically for me to speak. Kaulkamp. Well, in German, I would say Kaulkamp, because that's how it's spelled, and we speak phonetically in German. So Raptorman says, my question is this. When a race war does break out in this country, what will be done by the international community? Well, honestly, I don't know. We'll see. In 1960, famously, the United Nations embarked on its first peacekeeping mission ever after Belgians and others were the targets of racial discrimination, hatred, and murder as the Belgian Congo fell apart. And so the United Nations did its first ever UN peacekeeping mission, which really wasn't peacekeeping. But that was 1960. It's a very different world today. We shall see. Let's see what else. The NC's planned National Democratic Revolution, they want to collapse business, the idea of socialist or communist ideology. There seems to be a lot of truth to that, and the more action they take, the more it seems to be. Hendo is asking if Tony's surname is Hungarian. You are correct, Hendo. Nagy is a Hungarian surname. Tony's family is from Hungary. His father and uncle were around during the 56 revolution, which the Soviets crushed. His father managed to escape. His uncle did not and was sent to prison, and it broke him. Sorry if I'm sharing your story out of turn, Tony. But his father suffered a lot from that, or not his father, his uncle. And anyway, he wound up being in South Africa. I think Tony was born and grew up in South Africa, if I'm not mistaken, and then eventually lived in Canada. So he's all over. There you go. A South African, born Hungarian, Canadian citizen. There you go. I think I just covered it. All right. The Freedom Charter, but they won't admit that publicly. What about the Freedom Charter? The Freedom Charter is not an ANC work. It was the work of the Congress of the Peoples, of which the majority of people writing it were actually white Jewish South Africans, and it was meant to cover all South Africans. But the ANC has tried to rewrite history and claim all the credit for the Freedom Charter. And, of course, for Black consciousness. Terrence Balfour has just subscribed. Well, thank you for subscribing, Terrence. I appreciate it. I hope it's because you're enjoying the conversation here. But welcome to the channel, and thank you for getting that zombie going across the Mahalisburg. I love that site. But, yeah, so the Freedom Charter, this Black Consciousness Movement with Steve Biko was not an ANC initiative. There were lots of actors in the liberation struggle, including the Black Sash Movement, the Pan-African Congress, and oodles of other groups. But the ANC has tried to whitewash history. And if you go to the Apartheid Museum in Soweto, next to Gold Reef City, and walk through, you'll be nauseated at how the entire struggle is pictured in terms of all the glory of the African National Congress. And the things that they didn't have responsibility for, they took credit for it. For the truth of the matter is this, ladies and gentlemen, from the time of the Rivonia trials until the mid-1980s, the ANC was a forgotten entity in South Africa, had virtually no influence in the country. It wasn't until the Soweto riots of 1985, fomented in part by the ANC, which had got its marching orders in Vietnam from the Vietnamese communists and the Soviets, it wasn't until 85 that they started to come back on a stage and get some influence. And then very successfully fought a propaganda war to make it look like they single-handedly earned a democratic South Africa. They were just but one of many players, and an underhanded player at that. Tony is fluent in Magyar. Excellent. Well, impressive, Tony. My trip to Budapest, the only thing I could read in the entire city was Pizza Hut. Everything else was absolute confusion. I speak 6 languages, and I had no idea what they were saying. Anyway, Marius, my surname, German, my forefathers, but stayed in South Africa. Yeah, so, okay. Well, then my pronouncing is Krukamp well, I think it was Kraukamp, but Krukamp would be okay. Although Afrikaners pronounce it differently, no doubt. Gus says, also have lots of these in my head. One is a small soundproof room. Don't expect the international community to help anyone. Dan, I think that's a good point. The globe is filled with challenging situations. They're just left with, well, even if there aren't challenging situations, as we talked about, people have asked me, so does South Africa matter to the world? And I don't mean to hurt people's feelings, but in the scheme of things, this isn't 1975. Gold isn't that important. South Africa is the world's 10th largest gold producer. It was the first for decades. It's not anymore. It's a minor player when it comes to gold. The only strategic minerals that are coming out of South Africa that are major importance are platinum and chrome. We can get those items, especially chrome, elsewhere. And so South Africa is not that critically important. It's not a large consumer market. The value of U.S. trade in South Africa is not that much. We're talking about $20 billion a year for the U.S., so that's a small amount of revenue for even a tiny or mid-sized American company. So it's not that important. But I don't mean to hurt people's feelings. I care a lot about South Africa, and I think it is important geostrategically, but the world doesn't view it that way anymore. So we'll see if the world actually does anything. Let's see, what else? I'm going to miss something here. 3 times to Budapest. Yeah, Budapest was pretty cool. Beautiful city. I really enjoyed it. And of course, by the time I finally got there, communism was long since gone, so it was much nicer. William says half Afrikaans of Dutch descent, half British, which includes Scottish and English descent. Yeah. Raptorman wants to learn Russian. Okay. All right. That's interesting. You guys are chatting here. Let's see what else. What do you think about South Africa becoming a Muslim after traveling to a Muslim country and got stranded there? I'm not familiar with that story. But if someone wants to change their faith, that's their business. We got helium. You do. You do have helium. And we have a birthday party coming up, so I'm sure we need some. No, I'm being facetious. Helium obviously has other uses. Yes, South Africa does have, and South Africa does have rare earths, although they're not being exploited to any major degree at this point. But somewhere in the Karoo, there is a rare earth mine that was being developed a few years ago by the Chinese, I think. Agro is asking, do I think that's why the Oppenheimers sold their stakes in Anglo-American and the other gold deposits you mentioned? Yeah, I do think so. So here's the thing. Look, Yanni, are you here? Yanni, if you're in here, please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a mining expert, but I do invest in mining companies, and I do pay attention to the industry. But I'm not a geologist or a mining expert. But yes, what happened is that a lot of the people involved in the big corporations in South Africa that were involved in gold mining realized the handwriting was on the wall. The gold that is being mined in South Africa is so far underground, so deep, and so expensive to safely mine, or to mine, period, that it's becoming clear that South Africa would have declining gold production going forward at some point 15 years ago or so. So I think a lot of the players decided to get out of it. You also notice that De Beers has divested. I don't think they have any diamond interest in South Africa anymore. Cullinan Mine is not a De Beers operation. I don't think De Beers has any diamond mines in South Africa. They do, I stand to be corrected. But they've moved afield. Of course, they've long been involved in Botswana, but they've also looked in other places to get diamonds. But a lot of people realized that the gold mining was becoming more expensive and less profitable going forward, and so it wasn't the best investment to be involved in. And rightly so. Getting gold from the Midrand is very challenging these days. It's very deep. It's not like getting oil from Saudi Arabia where you just stand and poke a stick in the ground and the oil just comes up out of the ground. It's not quite like that. So yeah, I think that's why they got out of the business. The Oppenheimers and others moved on to other areas and divested and diversified their investments. Smart, if you ask me. Anglo Ashanti is selling off their operations. Yep, that's true. Yeah, well, Tion, you do have a point. They also get tired of 4,000 new mining laws, the mining in Daba, and all the other nonsense that's going on. Yes, absolutely. Gus says different topic. Why did South Africa lose the U.S. backing in the 1980s? Is Angola oil thing the truth? I'm not so sure what you mean by the Angola oil thing, unless are you saying that the U.S. Stopped backing South Africa because we want access to Angola's oil? Is that the point you're making, Gus? If that's the point, no, that's not the case. If you think back to the time we're talking about in which South Africa lost support in the U.S., this is what happened. Let me run it through. I mean, it's an oversimplification, but this is what happened, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so we come into the 1980s. The United States is in turmoil, chaos, economic disarray owing to the Arab oil embargo in 73, in which we allowed ourselves to become overly dependent on oil imports. And then the disastrous Carter administration came, the end of the Vietnam conflict. Carter didn't know how to handle the economy and made it worse. And we had hyperinflation. The prime lending rate was over 10%, went up to 14 or 15%. Unemployment in some places was off the charts. I graduated high school in 1982. Unemployment in my county in Ohio was 26%. Now, I know in South Africa, you're like, you can't compare. We've got 30, 40, 50%. 26% is mind-numbingly high. It was higher than during the Depression in that county. That tells you something. Of course, during the Depression, it was almost all farmers and coal miners, but at this point, it was a more diversified economy. So 26% unemployment. So what happened is that the U.S. was focused on itself. Reagan came in. The Soviet Union was our concern. We were focused on the evil empire. And South Africa declined in importance. And then, because of agitation in South Africa and the imposition of the effort to impose Afrikaans as the language, the medium of instruction in all public schools in South Africa, it touched off essentially 9 or 10 month what became an insurrection in the townships, especially. For those of you who were there and fighting in the townships or trying to suppress this or put it down, you know what I'm talking about. During this time, lots of media attention was focused on South Africa. The U.S. Congress attempted to pass sanctions against South Africa. President Reagan vetoed the sanctions on the basis that it was counterproductive, and his veto was overturned by Congress. Sanctions were put in place. That was 85. They took effect in 86. In 87, the South Africans went back. Well, they'd always been in Angola, but they went back in an obvious way in Angola and fought against the Cubans who were coming down to try to invade from the north, despite their claims of something else. That took place, and a lot of other events were taking place around the world. So the U.S. was losing interest in South Africa, and it had nothing to do with Angolan oil. We don't get much oil from Angola, and frankly, the oil coming from Angola is quite low quality. It's not oil we want. On a normal market, on the oil basis, you will find that a barrel of Angolan crude trades for $10 to $12 less a barrel than West Texas Light Intermediate crude or Niger Delta crude, because it's poor quality, it's full of contaminants, it takes much more energy to refine it, and you can't refine it for everything. So what happens is that it's expensive and it's less profitable. So we've never really been big consumers of Angolan oil. We probably got some from there, but that was not the reason. We weren't struggling. In the 1980s, in fact, oil dropped in 85. I missed this part of the conversation. I didn't add it. But if you remember, there was a glut of oil in 1985, and the price of oil dropped to down below $10 a barrel from over 30, I think it was, 26 to 30, dropped to under $10 a barrel, and it caused massive employment issues in Texas because there was too much oil. So we didn't need Angolan oil, and it was 85, 86 when South Africa fell strongly out of favor with the United States geopolitically. And it wasn't because of Angolan oil, we didn't need oil. It was because of other geostrategic events and also Congress. People agitated, people like Andrew Young agitating against South Africa. Now, that's what happened. And so we kind of lost interest in South Africa geopolitically, and that's what really happened. Did I answer your question there? I hope I did. It was Gus, I think, that asked that. Is South Africa still the number one platinum producer? William, I think it might be. I don't know off the top of my head. And it also depends on how much production was going on before we had a lockdown, because there were strikes in mines and things like that. Too difficult to unearth gold in SA anymore. Too expensive. Yeah, exactly. The diamond mine. Yeah, hey, Hank, I wanted to do that. Cullen, I really wanted to do that diamond mine trip, but I missed it twice. I was planning on it. Something else came up, and I didn't get around to it. Demir says mines in Botswana and Namibia. Yep, okay. And I think they were trying to invest in the Congo or Sierra Leone. I don't know if they ever did, but those are alluvial, so it's not a mining. So, world's biggest helium source. Well, that might explain the conduct of the African National Congress. All that helium. To me, it's a touching story. She got stranded and told how dangerous it was there. Then she got stranded and rescued. All that's about that lady. Like the stream, you feel like marshmallows. I think that's your question. Whoops. I think is in line with mine last. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Tion, Gus, did I answer your question? If not, I'll try to get into it a little bit better. Second generation family in South Africa. Okay, apologize for part. Exactly right. You're born South African, but you had nothing to do with that nonsense, and you're not profiting from it despite the lies that they tell. Victoria Gold Corp missed buying at 7 cents in 2010 and bought a truck instead. I did buy, what's the name of the company? The Canadian company that mines in Botswana, the one that keeps turning up these huge diamonds in Botswana. I bought shares of that on the Vancouver Exchange. Pinar van Wyk, what's your thoughts on the Michael Flynn case and how dropping the case because of military career would be controversial? New Name says, I remember hearing U.S. voice on the radio up in the bush, and then the Soviets fell, and they were worried no more. Okay, that's a different story if we're talking about, okay, Gus was asking me my new name about U.S. geopolitical support for South Africa, and now you're talking about U.S. tactical and operational support and or materiel support for the Bush war in Angola. Tied together, but not the same thing. Yes, we were involved in Angola in 75, backed the wrong horse, eventually got behind Savimbi and UNITA, because originally we were behind FNLA and Holden Roberto, which was the wrong horse to back. But that was because of our ties to Mobutu in the Congo, and Holden Roberto was allied with Mobutu, and so we foolishly bought into that nonsense instead of backing Savimbi at the outset. Had we backed Savimbi at the outset and South Africa in 75, then the MPLA would be no more, and the history of Angola would be very different, my view. Raptor Man, never owned slaves, never picked cotton. Ah, wow. The Dutch abolished slavery in 1860. The United States abolished the slave trade in 1806 and it went, or 1807, and it went into effect in 1808. We ended slavery in the 1860s. All right, so Pinar van Wyk asked me this question about Michael Flynn, my thoughts. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I've talked about that in the previous stream, but let me bring it up again. So let me frame the whole picture here so you have the whole situation, okay? All right, so this is the deal with Michael Flynn. Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. He was the director of the Defense Intelligence Agency. That's one of the intelligence agencies I've worked for in my career. I don't think they're anything special or have any particular love for them, but in the interest of full disclosure, I'll let you know I did work there. Now, I wasn't working there when General Flynn said something publicly that contradicted what President Obama said and put the president in an awkward position politically. I took exception to that. Why? Because I like Barack Obama? No, not even close. But because it was insubordinate in my view. Now, I was just a lieutenant colonel or colonel at the time, and he's a 3-star general, so who am I to be so cheeky? But in my view, what he did was insubordinate, and I thought it was inappropriate. He was right about what he said, but it was inappropriate to go to the press and say the things he said because it undermined the President of the United States. They didn't get him to retire, but they successfully prevented him from doing some other things he might have done. I think that the reason they went after Flynn as a national security advisor had a lot less to do with Russia collusion, which is what they spun it into, and a lot more to do with members of the Obama administration, deep state apparatus, and political appointees getting even with Michael Flynn for embarrassing Barack Obama. God forbid you say something about the anointed one, you will be persecuted and prosecuted over the flimsiest of charges. Look what happened to Dinesh D'Souza. That's right. Dinesh D'Souza, absolutely his life destroyed by charges that were outrageous. Over violation of the McCain-Feingold finance law, which, by the way, violates the Constitution, and that will come up for a court challenge again. But the McCain-Feingold law, which prevents Americans from donating more than a certain amount of money to a political candidate, he tried to get around that because he had a friend who was running for office, and he offered money to someone else to donate it so that essentially he was able to give 2 or 3 times. But we're talking about, $10,000, $12,000, $20,000, something like that. And for that, he became a convicted felon, and his reputation tarnished as if he was some dirty, filthy rapist, murdering, cash in transit heist robber. Meanwhile, the leftists do it all the time, get caught, and don't get charged with it. But they made an example out of him. The only person ever charged with the crime under McCain-Feingold, and he was convicted and became a felon. Famously, President Trump has pardoned him, so that is expunged. It's no longer part of his record. And thank goodness that injustice was corrected. But yeah, what happened to General Flynn was outrageous, abysmal, incorrect, and just simply wrong. There you go. Not a fan of General Flynn, but now that I've seen the transcripts that have been released after a Freedom of Information Act request, they finally came out, there is nothing in the conversations between Ambassador Kislyak from Russia and General Flynn. Simply an incoming national security advisor doing his due diligence, talking to foreign officials, because that will be his role in a matter of weeks, and explaining to them where the incoming administration was at. In the conversation, there was no quid pro quo, there were no promises, there was no backdoor stuff. this is a very unusual situation in which transcripts were released and virtually the entire conversation was left unredacted. Normally, when we see this stuff from intelligence sources in order to protect sources and methods, much of the conversation is redacted or marked out so you can't figure out where the information came from. Almost none of it's redacted. So General Flynn was railroaded. These people are shameful criminals, and they should be charged, tried, and if guilty, which many of them are, convicted, sentenced, and imprisoned. And it's as simple as that. No plea bargains, ladies and gentlemen. These people violated our Constitution and abused trust in this country. General Flynn is not blameless. He should have known better when the FBI met with him, and he didn't bother to ask if he needed an attorney. They didn't offer to read his rights to him, so there's a violation right there. He was not Mirandized. That has been proven in the courts and upheld that that is a constitutional right, that you must be informed that you are subject or suspected of a crime, and would you like an attorney to represent you? They told him he was not a suspect. They simply wanted background information for another investigation they were doing, and then they used that information in which he told them to the best of his recollection the truth. They used it to later claim that he lied. Even though the FBI reported back and filled out the 302s, that's the form, and said that he had been honest, that form was changed, and it said that he'd been dishonest. It's a scam, it's a cover-up, and it's shameful that they can do to somebody that has this much experience, committed this much of their life to the nation. And it's a shame they do it to the sitting president. Anyway, so there's that. I don't think people want to hear about General Flynn because I lost a few viewers there. Or maybe it's just late in South Africa. Yeah, so let me catch up over here. Yukon, 56 watching, 42 likes. Cool. Thank you, Raptor Man. Racism is a tool to push victimhood. Yeah, victimization. That's the story. Bush 9 leaks 125 days. Obama 7 leaks 125 days. Trump 126. Yeah, no. Absolutely true. It's getting worse and worse and worse. These people go on the circuit, go on TV, go on talking heads, and then peddle. The disloyalty is the shameful part. General Mattis, such a great guy. Well, he's out there running his mouth now about the president, and the president's still serving. That's disloyal. You want to complain about Donald Trump, complain about him after he's left office. I didn't complain about Barack Obama when he was serving. Of course, I was still in uniform, so it really would have been wrong. But if I'd been retired, I would have waited till retirement. Yeah. So Mattis is retired. He's complaining about the serving chief, but he was in his administration, and that's disloyal. That's unheard of. It shouldn't be done. If he wants to complain about Trump, wait till he's after. If he was not part of the administration, that's a different story. But he was part of it, and he has access to information and privilege that he should not be sharing with people. So shame on you, General Mattis. Now, I'll get a lot of flack for that because people love General Mattis, but what he's done is bad form, and it's a bad precedent. Yeah, so there you have it. Prejudice is still prejudice. Absolutely right. Yeah, so broke the screen when that lady tried to explain the difference between racism, racist bias, and race. I missed that part, Tion, and that's probably good because I probably would have broken my screen too. It's all nonsense. All nonsense. Hey, there's Captain Seakelt. Welcome from Scotland. Yeah. Now, if Captain Seakelt ever does a super chat, it'll come up as British pounds, right? But they do have currency in Scotland. If you're ever in Edinburgh or in Glasgow or somewhere in Scotland and you hand pound notes that have the British or the English figures on them, you might get a funny look. But if you hand them ones with Scottish figures on them, they have a happy smile. By the converse, I've gone from Scotland back to England and I've used notes from Scotland, and people look at me like it's foreign currency. It's legal tender throughout the United Kingdom. I could go to Northern Ireland and use it, but when they see that it's a much rarer sight to see the Scottish figures on the notes that are printed for Scotland as part of the same currency in England than it is the other way around. But when you're in England, you try to hand them a £5 or £10 note, whatever it is that has the Scottish figures on it. You get these. Is this a euro? What is this, a euro? No, it's the British pound. You're all part of the United Kingdom for today, and you have the same currency. Let's make a note that the Brits kind of always hedge their bets about the European Union. They did not adopt the euro. They never did, famously. So there you go. What is marshmallows? Are you just having fun there, Raptor, or do you support marshmallows? I don't know what you're getting at there, man. I grew up. Barack Obama, have you seen the photos of him in drag when he was a student? What are your thoughts on the speculation that Michelle Obama is actually my... You guys are just having fun now. Oh, yeah. Pinar says he knows that I'm a Providence supporter, but that Bulls jersey looks good. It is blasphemy. It is. But this is, for a Bulls jersey, this is actually a nice one, huh? Check it out. Yeah, that was kind of cool. Sorry, I was pretending to be a lock. I'm not a lock, I'm a wing. So anyway, just trying to get in there for the scrum. Anyway, yeah, it is a Bulls jersey, and it's one of the better look ones. I also have that hideous pink one for breast cancer awareness, but I have it. Mattis is a war criminal. Okay, that's a blanket statement there, Marty. On what basis? Iraq, something he did? I'm not aware that he's a war criminal, but what he certainly did to Trump was bad form. And to answer the question Raptor Man had, although the question was confusing, I support many of the policies of Donald Trump. I voted for him in 2016. I will wholeheartedly vote for him in 2020. But I have issues with some of his conduct. Let's see what else we got here. Pinar likes. Yeah, it is a nice jersey. Thanks. Yeah, I thought you were having a fun one. Too much nonsense going in the world not to smile away. Absolutely. Tony likes the jersey. Shark shirt is better. Robert, I've had the Shark jersey on for a couple videos I did. And they're actually doing pretty well. I don't think it's because of the Sharks jersey. I just think it's because of the content. But yeah, I have worn that. Yeah, Marius, this Captain America Heroes, these jerseys, the Bulls one's probably a better one. The one that the Stormers have, I just can't get my head around it. There's two of them. There's the dark one and then the light one, and it looks like the same teams are on the pitch at the same time. It's very confusing for me. Excuse me. So I have a little bit of a challenge with that. Anyway, yeah. What else? Not a lock, but you do have a lock. I do. Look at this, folks. Yeah, this is out of control. This is my lockdown. Now, unlike Ronaldo, I don't have a pet here, so I can sing the Locky Down song. Some people are telling me I should, do this and put my hair in a ponytail. I'm not so sure I like that. I think I look like a drug dealer or a pimp or something like that if my hair's back like this. But yeah, by the way, it's all me. No widow's peak. 55. That's all mine. It's thick like a Persian rug. Yeah, pretty happy with that. But yeah, it is kind of out of control here. I feel like a 70s, sitcom star or something like that. But yeah, it is. Once a lion, always a lion. There you go. Popping in to say, hey, Germ. Hey, there you are. Germ, you and I need to talk, my friend. You and I were supposed to talk about, is it this week or for next week? Or hey, thanks for popping in. I don't know if you were on stream earlier. My apologies. I missed it. I haven't caught your content for a couple of days. I've been very busy with special features with guests coming in. Once again, for folks just tuning in, tomorrow I will have Unati Kwaza, a businesswoman from Western Cape. She'll be on my program for a special feature on Monday. I don't really want to do them on Mondays, but that's 2 Mondays in a row it's happened, but that's because that's when the speaker is available. Last week I had Renee Kruger, the lovely young Boer Meisje, an Afrikaner who came on to talk about Afrikaans culture and Boer culture and South Africa, and she was a wonderful guest. Last Monday was a special feature, Renee Kruger, still on the past uploads, you can check it out. And then Friday I had Toya Usemri, a Nigerian-American entrepreneur and businesswoman who used to work at Walmart and Whirlpool but has her own businesses now. Fascinating discussion talking about trade and entrepreneurialism in Africa and the U.S. and North America getting involved in that. That was Friday. Yesterday I had the Conscious Carrick on, Ernst van Zyl, and that was a wonderful conversation. He's such a brilliant young gentleman, and I really enjoyed having the Conscious Carrick on yesterday. Today had Phil Craig on talking about the Cape Secession movement, which was interesting. That was a special feature. And tomorrow my special feature is with Unati Kwaza, who looks a very interesting guest. So that should be interesting tomorrow. So please tune in tomorrow. That's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard here in the U.S. It'd be 5 p.m. in Gaborone, Johannesburg, and Cape Town tomorrow. That's that discussion for those tuning in. But thanks for popping in there, Germ. Good to see you. I don't know if you disappeared already, but appreciate folks popping in on the discussion tonight. What else we got going on over here? So don't get me started on penguins. I love penguins. One day they sure will. Now, which type of penguins are we talking about? Jackass penguins, emperor penguins? Aren't they the same? Which penguins are we talking about? Robert says, get DBL to contact. Oh, I think you mean Big Daddy Liberty. You mistyped that. You're telling. I think Robert Zede was telling Germ Warfare to have Big Daddy Liberty contact me. Please, I would be grateful for that. He's not getting my emails or he's ignoring them. I'm going to suspect he's not getting them. So Aussies, what are Aussies like? Swarm DJ says, Jeremy missed Germ's stream because he was too drunk to focus. Well, yeah, I tell you what, I don't drink on my streams, but whenever I do go on Germ's stream, I'm probably going to pull out a Weizen and enjoy a beer because it seems to be the norm on Germ's show. Okay, so Bobby B says, I looked you up online to see if you're really former military and you really look different from your LinkedIn pic. I like the beard. You fit in up there here. Oh, you're in New Hampshire. Well, thank you, Bobby B. Yeah, no, this chinchilla that's growing on my face, this is just since Christmas, by the way, folks. Yeah, And this is normally closely cropped, and it's not nearly this, gray fox, silver gray look there. It's usually darker when it's shorter. So I look considerably younger, and I'm not just boasting, that's a true statement. If you looked at the LinkedIn profile photo, that's not an old photo, that's relatively recent. And if you look at the picture on this channel, when you come looking for Chris White Africa, you'll see me holding a fake rugby ticket in front of myself. That's me in October at the Rugby World Cup in Japan. Yeah, just a few months ago. This is lockdown here, that's what this is, and this is 36 years of being forced to shave every day and deciding not to do it. Actually, I was about to shave the beard off, and on Ronaldo Host's program, Ronaldo said, okay, let's do a poll. Who thinks the Colonel should shave his beard? And it was about 50-50, and I was inclined to do it anyway. And then I went on my stream, and I said, okay, it was talk about Ronaldo show, but what do you guys think? Since you're my subscribers. Those were Ronaldo subscribers. Some are the same, but not all. And it was about 3-1. People were like, don't cut your beard, Colonel, don't cut your beard. It's really cool. And people keep saying it looks like Pete Retief. As long as I don't meet Pete Retief's end, I'll be okay with that. But I may, in fact, cut it sometime soon, but we'll see. I forget it's there sometimes. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, I do look very different in that photo. But that's what I did for 36 and a half years, ladies and gentlemen. I was in the Army. And I am a colonel, retired, but that is a title you keep for the rest of your life, unless I become an ambassador, president, or senator, or something like that. But I am a colonel, retired colonel now. Published the 30 essay towns of solidarity. What's that about, Alan the finishing Alan the finishing contractor? That sounds like a made-for-TV program. A person with a nose like the stream. Okay. Speaking of Chaz, I see police are resigning in numbers. Yeah, they are. We see SWAT teams and emergency response teams and police resigning all over. So good luck to these metropolitan areas trying to police their cities. People are leaving Minneapolis in droves, and I don't blame them. They'll be doing the same in Seattle and in Portland, and good luck to them. We were talking about militant penguins. Okay, well, I guess some penguins are militant. You guys keep talking to Germ, but I don't see Germ anymore. Is he still there? Or did he pop in for a second? You guys are just writing to him in hopes that he'll write back. Did you email me? Germ, I did email you a couple of times, and we actually chatted back and forth. Okay, Germ, you want to call in? I'll bring you into the chat if you want to call in Skype. You want to do that? If Germ wants to call in, we'll do Germ come in the channel. We'll chat right here, right now on the channel if you want. So Germ, if you want to call in, we can do that. We can chat a little bit. I want to see if Germ is drinking something right now. That's what I want to know. So there he is. Touch like. Thank you. Please push the like button. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. What's that? Dion Desot just subscribed. Well, thank you for getting the zombie crawling up the Mahalisberg. He's reaching for the peak, and he didn't quite make it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Thank you. All right. So if Germ is still there, and then we can get Germ to come on. Let me check my email real quick while Germ is there. Let me see. So I'm looking to see if he wrote to me. Do I have Germ on WhatsApp? I don't recall. Let me see. Somebody wrote to me on WhatsApp a minute ago, and now my eyes are not opening my screen. That's distressing. All right. Let's see what we got here. No, Ronaldo wrote back to me. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, Germ, I'd love... What's this? Oh, that's interesting. Okay, that's a different email. I wrote to an Afrikaans musician, and it got rejected. Apparently, the email is not good. Anyway, yeah, no, but if Germ wants to call in... he's plugging in his mic. Germ, I don't know. Let me open my Skype up. I don't know if we've Skyped before, so this is good. Ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we might be getting Germ to call in to Chris White Africa. All right, so... Yes, once you're there, Germ, I'm going to go ahead and put my earpiece in. So this could be exciting. Yeah, okay. Tian says, Pinar, that rumor had merit. Don't you think more people than just the all-powerful scam Sightlander would be talking about it? Ooh, you guys think Sightlander's a scam? Interesting. Okay. Funny how many of us ex-military are growing the beards. Silent rebellion. Yeah, don't forget the beard oil, girl. Actually, yeah, the stuff I put in my hair, the goop I put in there is actually something that I've put on my beard from time to time. Yeah, but I tell you guys, I really need to see a barber. My goodness. Robert says, I'll ask Ronaldo or Germ Ramon to contact. Oh, okay, yeah. Let's see. All right, so Germ is hooking up. All right. I'm going to share my Skype address in here. And okay, here we go. All right, so Germ, there you go. If you didn't have it, that's how you reach me on Skype. Now that's not an invitation for everybody to start calling my Skype number, okay? we're trying to get Germ in here. All right, so yeah, let's see if he comes up in a second and we'll talk. I want to see if Jerm is drinking something. If he's drinking something, I might go get a beer myself. Tian says, yeah, it might be, but those oaks will be the last to know about it. I like it. You guys are funny tonight. Yeah, we were all triggered here. Anyway, aha. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Well, let me just run back some stuff here. We had some super chats here from Slot and from Gus and from Marius Krukamp. Thank you guys so much for the super chats. Really awesome. Appreciate it. If you're triggered by Bianca Fun, there we go. There's Germ. Okay. Accept. All right. Got it. I'm going to try to call him. Okay. All right. I'm calling Germ now. Let's see if I can get him up, and we'll get him in the conversation. Hey, Germ, you there? All right.
Hey.
All right. I got to bring you to the stream. Let me do the NDI. Just be patient there. If you got something to drink, what are you drinking?
You're not going to believe me, but I'm not drinking.
You're not drinking? I will believe it. I just have to see it.
No, I'm not drinking at the moment. Can you believe it? I'm letting my side down.
There he is. Okay, I've got myself too big. I'm going to make myself smaller so that Germ is... Let me try something a little bit different here. Wow, look at that. All right. All right. You probably can't see me any longer, Germ. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, man. I had a bit of echo going on this. Say that again.
No, I said you probably can't see me on my camera, right? But you can see me online.
I can see online. I can't see on your camera.
No, that's good. Yeah, because I've just got the one camera on this setup. Well, Jeremy, welcome in. Here we go. We've got Germ Warfare in here. You're most welcome. I don't think we've ever actually talked online before on either channel. It's the first time.
I don't think so. I must just tell you, I apologize. I'm not drinking. You caught me without a drink.
Well, it is weird, but don't worry. I am triggered here, and so I've been using my therapy Hemsbach. And as somebody pointed out, he's going to be bald because Bianca von Wyk set me off, and I don't want to wear all of his fur off. Did you watch that?
No, I watched the first 2 minutes, and I couldn't.
Well, I came in at like the last 20 minutes, and I'm like, what? I almost half expect her to show up on the steps of the Capitol building here in Washington and join Nancy Pelosi and appropriate some kente cloth and take a knee and apologizing for having light pigmentation, because clearly it's a crime.
Well, one can only hope. These days, one needs to own it, because these lefty social justice warriors are just so triggered by anything. So the best response to them, the best ammunition is just to actually agree with them. Germ, you're a racist. Yes, I am.
And that completely disarms them. What are they going to say then, right?
Yeah.
Well, because that's the extent of their argument. That's about all the ammunition they have in their pouch. It's crazy.
Yeah, you're homophobic. Yeah, I am. See, the guy cut my hair. He's gay and homophobic. So now what, Bianca?
Actually, your hair reminds me. I don't know if you guys ever watched the show, The Coupling. It was a sitcom. It was a British sitcom. It was actually pretty funny. But in one of the episodes, one of the guys got a haircut and his hair was up like that. And he said, yeah, I went to the barber. I asked for a hard man, and this is what I got. Obviously, a gay reference, but it was just, I'll never forget that. Yeah.
No, so, listen. One needs to look a bit more manly coming out of this lockdown. So short back and sides.
Well, I don't know about manly or what this is, but this is definitely out of control. Check it out, man. Look at this stuff. It's an effort.
My wife will use your head to clean the floor.
It looks like a dust mop, does it?
Yeah. Why haven't you cut it? You're not even in lockdown.
Well, as of Friday, we're not in lockdown anymore. We went, we're still in lockdown, but they're playing games with us here. So we went to green, but green here doesn't mean all the businesses are open. So I don't even know if my barber's reopened. I'm kind of persnickety. Once I find a barber I'm comfortable with, I only go to that barber. It's like a relationship. And the lady who cuts my hair in the local town here, she's got a nice runs her own business. She's really good. And so I ought to go check out and see if she's open, because I really do need a haircut.
Where are you?
I'm near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So it's about 20 minutes from the center of Pennsylvania. And the reason I'm here is because my last assignment was at Carlisle, which is about 15 kilometers to the west of here, where the War College is at. And I taught at the War College, so I was director of African Studies there. So I retired here in October, and it just leaves me in central Pennsylvania. It's a good location. I'm 2 hours from D.C., so I don't have to deal with it unless I need to. 3 hours from New York, same situation. 2 hours from Philadelphia, and about an hour, 45 minutes from Baltimore. I have a lot of family in Maryland, so it just works out pretty well.
So I was checking my email now to see if if you and I have been chatting, and yes, we have been chatting, and I realize that I did actually reply to you, and I forgot to reply after that. I must apologize. I don't think I've ever received this much email and private messages and DMs and all kinds of stuff as I have during this lockdown. The irony is that I've lost 2 contracts, so I've literally scaled back in work, but I've been busier than ever. It's the oddest thing.
No,
So
it's
I
all.
apologize.
Listen, Jeremy. There's no need to apologize. It's like people. I suspect at some point people are going to think that I assume that Big Daddy Liberty is blowing me off or ignoring me. But I got his email. I got his email.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't reply if you've been trying to get hold of him.
Right. Well, so. I'm not taking offense. I mean, look. I've been dealing with email for 40 years because we had it before the World Wide Web was around, the military, and when I was in Liberia, I would get, no kidding, when I was rebuilding the armed forces of Liberia, 1,500 emails on an average day, of which 300 of them actually needed me to respond. So I was perpetually behind. And that's just email. That wasn't even Twitter and all this other stuff. So I appreciate the inundation. So no, I don't take any offense that we haven't nailed it down. It's another reason why I've had like 4 or 3 special features in 4 days, because that's when I could get people to come on. So I just went ahead and plowed ahead and did it. So I think,
Right.
So no problem. We'll link up. We'll get it to happen. Thank you for calling.
Well, hang on. This week.
Yeah.
This week.
Okay.
Actually.
Okay.
You can come on. I was asking where you are because I don't know what the time gap is.
6 hours. I'm behind you.
6 hours. Okay. So it'll have to be in the afternoon then for me, or the evening.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Although I prefer not to do it, but typically I'm debuting or premiering some of my videos at 7:30 in the morning, so 1:30 here. If it's about South Africa, I'll stay up and premiere it after morning shot or before morning shot.
No. We'll make it so that it's good for both of us. But I've been meaning to get you on actually. So I think I'll send you an email and get you on this week actually.
Yeah, we should do it.
Yeah, definitely. I want to hear all about your Africa stuff. Gee, man, you've got quite a history, hey?
Yeah, no, it's funny. I mean, of course, not being boastful because I'm not. But when I was being introduced, where was I? I was on the Conscious Caracals channel or somebody else's channel recently, and they're running through like he's done this, he's been here, he's been there. I'm like, whoa, who are they talking about, man? That's impressive. It's actually my CV.
And I heard you say earlier when I popped in to say hi that you said you're going to vote for Trump again. I already like you.
Well, let me help you out here. How's that?
I can't see it because I'm watching YouTube.
I'm sorry. That's right. Yeah, I thought you had it.
And it's
no,
delayed.
I just put on a Keep America Great camouflage Duck Dynasty pattern Trump 2020 cap.
You know what? Have you seen my MAGA cap?
I have, and it pales in comparison, my friend. You're 4 years behind the times. You need to catch up.
Yeah, listen. I need you to send me one. There's no way I can get one locally.
Well, I'll have to see if I can do it. This was one of those ones where they were looking for political donations, and it was a short time availability, so I just went ahead and did it. But I'll look around and see if I can't get one because it's really freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean,
I'm looking at it now. It's great.
Oh yeah, okay. Sorry, yeah, it's come up now. Yeah. There's on the side here. I'll put it back up. So there's a U.S. flag on one side, which of course I'm all behind the stars and stripes. 45 in orange on the other side, with a huge 45, by the way, and on the back is Trump in 2020. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I'll see if I can't find one. I was thinking about that for you, and I think Roman would like one too if I could get across and get one.
I'd love one. Yeah, definitely. Listen, you've got quite a lag. How do you set your latency?
Okay, well, I've got it set for normal latency right now. I had it for ultra low latency. Should I switch back to ultra low?
I don't think you can change live on.
No. I'm talking about for future streams.
Yeah. Ultra low is what you want. It's got the shortest lag.
Okay. Well, I'll go back to that. The reason that I've been back and forth is that I was having problems, and the issue had to do with it turned out my Wi-Fi router, because I was running my stream off the Wi-Fi and I would get dumped off it, even though I've got like a terabyte of speed. So eventually I switched to my PC and used my Logitech camera instead of my laptop camera, and then used my Blue Yeti mic. Things got better and better, but I still got cut off. And I finally realized it must have been the router, even though I changed the settings and everything. So I went ahead and hooked up to the LAN card, and I've not had a problem since then. And I just,
there you go.
So I need to go back. I was using the ultra low latency, hoping that it wouldn't cause the stream to break, but I didn't realize it would leave that big a gap, because there's like about 20 or 30 second delay in the live stream versus what people are seeing, and that's a little frustrating. But if the ultra low latency, then that's what it is. I'll fix that from now on. I'll default set back to that. So
ultra low, I think, is about 4 seconds.
Okay, well, thanks. That makes it a lot better. That's helpful for me, so I appreciate that.
Someone's sorry, I'm taking
Yeah,
over here, but I'll just
sorry.
answer the question. William says, "Germ, do you like sports?" Yes, but it depends on the sports. I guess I've lost a lot of interest in South African sports because it's become too politicized.
Well, no, it's a good
But
question. In fact, on LinkedIn, I was quite critical of the South African Rugby Union SARU because now it wasn't because of Alistair Coetzee. I'm a Stormers and Province fan. He was the coach out there. Although they should have won, Super Rugby twice and won 5 Curry Cups. They won 2 Curry Cups and never won Super Rugby. But anyway, that's because I don't think he has the heart of a lion to stab it. But that's another story. But when he was with the Springboks, that was a time in which this racialization was taking hold, and SARU was pushing this 50% black players and having quotas. And I was very outspoken against SARU. I publicly stated on LinkedIn that this is racist, it's racial. We sanctioned South African rugby during apartheid for the exact same nonsense. So if we're going to do it then World Rugby needs to be consistent. And even though it would break my heart to see the Springboks not compete internationally, I started making noise about it. Well, fortunately, we saw Rossi Erasmus come in. He was able to table that nonsense, and he put. It may not have been the best Springbok team that could have been available at the time based on talent. And I'm not talking about race or anything. I'm just talking about the best players. I think there were really good players that were left off that team, but that's fine because Rossi was building a team, not talent. And that team, and he proved it worked. And I watched them in their first test match was here in D.C. against Wales, and they lost that game. And I was very angry because there were all these kids on the pitch I'd never seen before. It was their first game, but Rossi had a plan. He was exposing them, see who had the talent, and see who could make a good, and it worked. They won the World Cup. I was in Japan. I went to 17 games. I had 18 games. Well, I had 18 games, but one of them was forced out by the Typhoon. Typhoon Hagibis cost me the All Blacks and Italy, and so I didn't get that game. But 17 games, 30 days, all 4 Springboks pool stage games against Namibia, Italy, Canada, and the All Blacks. Yep.
Yeah, it's weird. You're American and you know so much about rugby.
Well, yeah, no, it's a really cool sport. I mean, I know a lot of sports, but I'd say these days rugby is one of my top favorite sports. I lost the NFL lost favor with me for their unpatriotic, shameful conduct and their misrepresentation of the story there. That kind of irritated me. Baseball in my older age has become kind of boring. I don't have the patience to sit around and watch a game that just goes and lags on so long. It's fun to play, and yeah, right now really the one that excites me the most is rugby. Cricket. I actually went to the Cricket World Cup in England last year.
Oh, what?
Yeah. I went to Pakistan home game in England. Yes, a Pakistan home game.
Cricket's a great game, but I don't watch it anymore because my wife finds it incredibly boring. So it's a bit difficult to enjoy cricket if your wife really doesn't like it. So
yeah, no, I got that. But that's I mean the cricket that goes for days on end. I'm talking about this is the one that just it ends in one day.
The T20.
Yeah, that's what it is, I guess. Yeah, but this was the World Cup in England, and I went to Manchester, and literally it was a Pakistan home game. There's so many Pakistanis in the UK. It was against New Zealand, and I'm looking around and there's like 3 other New Zealand fans. I'm not usually a New Zealand fan, but I thought I would try it out for cricket, and I was very much outnumbered, about 97-1.
Speaking of sports, I have for years tried to figure out how American football works. I've watched it so many times. It is the most confusing game I've ever watched. I have no idea how it works, and it looks incredibly homoerotic. And I just figured, you know what? I'll just watch rugby rather.
Which game? Sorry, it was a hiccup here.
American football.
Oh, American football.
It makes no sense to me.
Well, I get that. And people here who don't play cricket, because it is played here, cricket, but by very few people in the U.S. People watch cricket and they're like, "What the hell? This doesn't make any sense." And even though it has close ties to baseball in some respects, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people. I get that if you don't grow up with the sport. It's like I don't understand the passion around soccer, football. I don't get it. I
also don't get it.
I've lived all over the world. I'm like, it's a boring ass game. You run around and you kick a ball and you lose possession half the time. And you can't, at least in rugby, there's a build-up, right? Unless someone has a knock on, you have a build-up or someone gets away. You've got control. But in soccer, from one instant to the next, the ball's going the other way, and then who's offside and which corrupt FIFA official got a sack, show of cash in their hotel room to throw the game and hand out a yellow card. Anyway, no, I've been to the World Cup in South Africa, and it was all right, but that was because of the environment. I went to Loftus to watch Cameroon and Denmark play, and I rooted for Denmark. And that was the day that I almost became a convicted felon because I nearly killed the piece of sack of crap behind me with his damn vuvuzela blowing in the back of my head. And
I hate that thing.
And his spittle dripping down the back of my shirt. I almost killed a guy. Yeah. And then I went to Royal Bafokeng to watch the U.S. play Ghana. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say, so I don't have a history of mainstream sports. Like most of my schooling years was spent around sort of X Games stuff. So I was always into sort of skateboarding and surfing and BMXing and sort of like motocross type stuff. I've always enjoyed that kind of thing. I've never ever understood golf. I've tried it. It's rubbish. Golf is absolutely rubbish. I think people play just to get business deals.
Well, that's part of it.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason why you play golf. But I mean, listen, I've scored business deals elsewhere, so you don't have to play golf. You just have to go to a strip club.
Well, yeah, there's that. The Yakuza are very familiar with that process.
Right. But yeah, I mean, I grew up with mostly surfing and skateboarding and that kind of stuff. So I was never really into the mainstream stuff. Only in like the last 20 years, I suppose, I started getting into, or last 15 years, I started getting into rugby a bit more. And that's also to do with your friendship circles, I suppose.
Sure, absolutely. And also what's going on in your life at the time. So, for instance, rugby was easier for me to follow because I was in Africa most of the last 20 years and I had DSTV. So I've got Super Sport and I can watch any rugby I want. And then, of course, in Southern Africa I can go. And I even went to rugby in Uganda. In fact, I was asked to be a coach for the Ugandan national team. And I'm like, hey, guys, just because I know rugby doesn't mean I'll be good at coaching it. I've coached other sports, but they asked me to be one of the coaches for the Ugandan national team. And I was like, that's very nice of you to ask when I first got there. But, it's it has a lot to do with where you're at the time and what's going on in your life.
But I must be honest, I don't watch much sports anymore. I'm so busy with all kinds of other stuff now. And, I don't know. I just find it a lot of the time just it doesn't grab me anymore. I'm so disillusioned by all the politics.
Yeah, no, I got you. That's certainly the case. And when it comes to rugby, it's not just politics of the politics of race like you have in South Africa. It's the politics of money and this competition between the Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, and the old boys club of the traditional rugby nations. And so now Super Rugby is on the verge of collapsing potentially because the South African clubs might start playing in Pro 14. The New Zealand clubs are negotiating with a billionaire hedge fund in America to have a competition that will be New Zealand and America, I guess. And so it's all over the place. It's really frustrating and disappointing because and this is not biased. It's just, I think, an objective statement. If you want something to be big in this world, I mean, truly big, it has to make it in the U.S. This is the largest commercial consumer market on the planet. Yeah. It's where all the advertising dollars are. It's where all the mega dollars are for television. And you can have something make it elsewhere, but it's far easier once it makes it big in the U.S. And rugby has been with us for over a century. We were the world's Olympic champions in 20 and 24, but we didn't have a national team until 1984. And now we have national team. But it kind of fell behind football and other sports, and it hasn't taken off. We did have a professional rugby league till a couple years ago, and after one season, it kind of fell apart because there was issues with the U.S. Rugby Union and with the league. And now we have Major League Rugby, and it was in its third season. It was doing quite well. I don't know if it was profitable, but it was doing quite well and had a lot of money behind it. And then the lockdown happened, and now everything's off the table. But it looks like it'll survive and be around next year. But if rugby wants to make it big, and I think that's what New Zealand's looking at, they want the money. And so they realize that the market is in the U.S. and I think they're going to come here, which will kill Super Rugby. And for me, that'd be disappointing because I've enjoyed Super Rugby, but it's been so inconsistent. The league has been diluted, from 12 to 14 to 15 to 18 teams, and teams in Japan and Argentina. It's become too much. Now they've pared back from that, but anyway. No, but I'm with you. But I've done all kinds of things. I was a skateboarder when I was a kid. I loved it, but I was short and skinny, so being a skateboarder was easy. Then I got tall, and it was harder to keep my balance at that height. And so I kind of got away from skateboarding, but I played tennis, and I played golf, I played baseball, rugby, football. I played them all. In fact, I was playing softball here until just last year. I played into my 50s.
Softball?
Softball, yeah.
Softball?
Yeah. Now, you're probably...
Do you wear lipstick also?
Yeah, there's a difference. You're talking about fast pitch softball. That's what girls play. Softball, slow pitch is what men play.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Someone's asking, what's my opinion of Saintlanders? Very easy. Just go and watch my conversation with them from 2 weeks ago.
Oh, hey, speaking of conversations, I caught part of your conversation with the guy who, now listen, okay, in full disclosure, he says he's not a South African, but he misleads when he comes up and says, "Hello, fellow South Africans. You're not a fellow South African. Loving life." Scott, yes. I watched your interview with him. I thought it was a pretty good interview. So thank you for that, Jerome. It was a really good interview because all I hear, I never watched his channel. Because his videos came up on YouTube a couple years ago when I was out hiking, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, okay, I watched one of his videos, it kind of made sense. The next, I'm like, whoa, this guy's off the deep end conspiracy stuff. So I just kind of lost interest in it. And then, of course, famously on Ronaldo's channel, people were whinging about it all the time, back and forth. So I went back and checked his channel out. But your interview with him, I thought was brilliant. I mean, it was objective. And
I struggled. I struggled.
Really? Why did you
struggled
struggle?
a lot. He's a decent guy, and I think he means well. But he spent a lot of time plugging his subscribers and like how many subscribers he has, and how many channels he has, and the impact that he has. And I mean, it was fine, but it gets a bit much, you know. And but although I mean, I don't have a beef with him, so.
What I meant about the interview was brilliant is the questions you asked of him, the things you pressed him on, I thought was very well done. It was very well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're welcome. It was a compliment to you. I'm not necessarily talking about what his feedback was, but what I didn't know though is that book on the Children of the Mist. I didn't know that he was the author of that book. I own that book about the Greek. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I had no idea he was the author. It's actually not a bad book. It's the only history I've ever found on the Greekwood people. It's hard to find colored history.
Do you read autobiographies?
I do, but not by people like.
Read that.
Is that from Gareth Cliff?
No.
Oh, I can't see.
I don't know how it's on the screen.
Is that Breitbart? Is that Breitbart?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah. I have not read that, but I'm very familiar with Andrew Breitbart. Yeah. Sad, tragic. He died as young as he did.
Definitely, it's the best autobiography I've ever read.
Really? Okay. All right.
Definitely, without it, I've read it twice.
Well, you probably can't see behind me, but I actually have one autobiography back there, and that's Helen Zillow, Not Without a Fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah,
she's great. I like her very much. Someone's asking about the Saidlanders again. It's interesting. I enjoyed that conversation. I learned a lot about them. Here's the thing, right? So I draw cartoons for a living, Chris. I'm not an interviewer. I don't pride myself as that at all. I just want to have conversations with people. I am biased. And sometimes when I've got a guest on who is probably somebody to do with the Saidlanders or maybe loving life or whatever, in that instance, I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. And at that point, I'd rather just want to learn about them. I'm not there to argue with them, you know?
Right. No, I honestly, that's one of the reasons why I want to get you on the channel. I mean, I know that I think you reached out to me on I don't know if it was Ramon's channel or something like that. Like, hey, I want to get Chris on my channel because for whatever reason, I don't know for Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo tried to goad you in it one night when you were drinking. Hey, how come you haven't had Chris on yet? You need to get Chris on your channel. And I think you were drinking that night. You're like, yeah, sure.
That's the problem though. I get phone calls from my mother. Listen, you drink too much on your show. You know. Wow. I do enjoy a good drink. You know, that's the problem. I am unashamedly someone who enjoys a drink, and what better way to enjoy it with other people when you're doing a live stream.
No, look, I'm not here to give you grief about that. There's nothing wrong with you drinking on your channel, but when you fib about it and go, no, I haven't been drinking, dude, you're clearly pissed.
That one with Ramon, yes, I was tanked.
That's the one I'm talking about.
my eye was hanging, but what happened was I was at my buddy's house,
okay.
and he was. We were just, I don't know, he was filling up my glass all the time. And I said to him, listen, I've got to go do a stream with Ramon. And I don't know how much you drink, but sometimes you think that you're fine.
Yeah.
Until you stand up.
Well, then you definitely gone too far. No, the deal with me with drinking is that when I was young, I was in the Army. And this was when the Army turned against drinking in the early mid-1980s. And if you got caught with any alcohol in your system, you were done. If you're enlisted, you'd get a punishment, and your career would be damaged irrevocably, but you could still continue. If you're an officer, you were done. They were booted out. That was the end of your career.
Right.
So we're talking about having 2 beers at a nightclub and going out and the military police pull you over and you blow in it and you're done. So I watched a lot of my friends go from private first class to specialist to sergeant and back to private. because they got busted.
Right.
And
Okay.
I didn't have a car then because I would stumble and walk or take a taxi to the German clubs and get schnockered, get pissed and have a good time. And then I didn't have a car. But once I got a car, I'm like, nope, one drop, I'm not driving. So I have a personal rule. I don't push on anyone else. But if I have one drop of alcohol, I won't drive. Which in effect means that I'm not a teetotaler, but I only usually get to drink if it's evening or say I'm traveling, I'm in a hotel and I don't have a car. So I have nothing against alcohol. I'm perfectly fine drinking it, but I just don't get drinking much. My preference is a Weizen. I'm a beer snob. I don't drink anything but German beer. In Africa, I'll only drink Windhoek Lager. It's the only beer I drink in Africa.
Yeah, don't support SAB.
Oh, no. SAB is a bunch of shysters, and their beer tastes like urine. So not that I've ever had urine. Anyway.
Well, you were in the army. I thought you might have.
No, we don't have to filter water. We have good logisticians. They provide the water, so we don't have to do that. But yeah, no. But the Loving Life interview. I'll get back to what I was going to say about you, but second, what I want to say about this was that I did appreciate it because it was really an interview, and I know you say that's not your forte necessarily, but it was interactive. And yes, let him push all the stuff he wants to, but I learned an awful lot about who that guy was and what he was about from it, and that's really the purpose of an interview. So that was great. But what I want to say about you, Term, is that I'd never heard of you before. Of course, I know who Zapiro is, and now I want to drop him off a short pier. But I used to love.
Yeah, he's a lefty.
No, I used to love his cartoons. Of course, when you draw a shower head over Jacob Zuma and you're the only one with the nads to do something like that, it's easy to get a viewership. But the disgusting.
That's the reason why. That's the reason why he was the only one who did that.
Right, because he was the only one. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
No. He got angry at the rest of us if we copied.
Now see, I didn't know who you were, and I didn't even know. So where do your cartoons appear other than finding on the web? Are you in the papers or?
Yeah, well, I'm Report's chief cartoonist.
Okay. The Afrikaans site, Rapport.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I left the mainstream in about 2016, 2017. I've spoken about this a few times. I had what I call a Damascus moment. In 2016, my wife and I moved to the coast, to a little town of Mossel Bay.
I know Mossel Bay, yeah.
Yeah, and we lived there for about a year, and it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Small town. We just picked up everything that we had here in Cape Town and took it there, and it was incredible. Tiny town. And I really loved it. Hey, we walked on the beach a lot, reevaluated what was important to me in life. And you know what? I think it's very good that you have a Damascus moment where you reevaluate your values and your principles. And I remember that year. My last big contract was the Sunday Times, and I lost that contract. They wanted to swap me out with a cartoonist who isn't white, which of course isn't racist at all. And I used that as an opportunity to basically almost entirely leave the mainstream and go into what do you call it? Alternative.
Yeah, sure.
Media. And I wanted to then realize to myself that I'm now not going to be this unbiased, trying to be balanced cartoonist, because most cartoonists they go, yeah, we poke fun at both sides, and for me that's a cop-out argument, because once you get red pilled, you realize, and by red pilled I mean when you start seeing the world as it really is, you realize that nobody can actually be balanced, and if anybody who says that they're balanced or that they are unbiased is lying. You can't be. All right, it goes against sort of biology. You have to be biased. You have to choose a side. That's how it works.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And so I realized at that point that I'm going to base everything on my set of values and principles. And I remember I got messages from friends of mine saying, if you do this, you're going to start creating enemies. And I said, that's fine. I need to be true to myself. And so after that, I started rebuilding my career based on alternative media. And then I got into lobby groups like AfriForum and the Free Market Foundation and the RRR, and that's where it's grown. And it's been wonderful. I don't look back.
So I imagine you saw, and I actually put it up on my screen. I found it incredibly offensive and not in the least bit political satire. That was the disgusting Zapiro cartoon he just did a few days back of Donald Trump naked with the Bible between his crotch, chewing on Lady Liberty. Did you see that? Yeah.
Did you see my response to it?
No, I didn't. Oh gosh, I really feel bad. I didn't see a response to it. So did you make a cartoon in response, or did you do a video in response to it?
No, I did a cartoon response last week. Go to my website. I think it's there. It's at germdraws.com. I'm quickly opening it now to see if I did add it to my site. And then you can make up your own mind about the comparison. I'm just quickly loading it now. Yes, it's there. So if you go to the cartoons, the cartoon section, and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see it at the bottom right.
This is on. Send me the link real quick in Skype if you can.
Okay.
I'm trying to find it here, and I'm not getting where I need to go.
Okay. Well, maybe if I just send you the cartoon in Skype.
Yeah, that'll work, and then I can also pull it up for folks. Yeah, that might just be easier. By the way, your sound is really good. I mean, they give you crap, about your microphone, but you have like the best quality sound. I don't know if it's because your room is so full or what, but your sound is always really good.
Oh, thanks, man. I've got a nice mic.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, I see that now. Let me see. Wow, that is okay.
So I drew the South African president in response.
Economic Senate. Okay, I gotta. Let me save this so that I'll put it on the screen so everybody can see it. Give me just a second, folks, and I'll bring it up in here so you can see it. If anybody joins, I'll make sure it doesn't infect. By the way, I got I activated the super chat recently because people kept asking for it, and I also put up like the Streamlabs thing when a new member joins, and so I just happened to put them in the right spot so that when somebody subscribes, it looks like the zombie is climbing the Mahalisberg because it's walking. And then when someone does a super chat, they're right at the top of the Mahalisberg. It's actually kind of funny. So anyway. Sorry, I'm pleased with myself. I thought that was kind of cool. Sorry.
William says that Mossel Bay is a city, not a tiny town. Okay, well, yeah, sure, but for me it was pretty small. I mean, it didn't even have a cinema.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. It's up on the screen now. It'll take a second for Jeremy to see it, for Jerem, because it's that latency thing. But yeah, that's the one you did. I did not see that, Jerem. Sorry, I missed that. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, well, not just that, but the blatant, disgusting racial invectives and racialization of every part of the public sphere. I find it disgusting. The fact that the world is not calling out Cyril Ramaphosa on this really is truly disturbing. And so I've gone full on exposing this stuff. Before, I would just point out the ANC's failures, and I wasn't running around claiming a national democratic revolution was underway or all these other things. But this is just disgusting what's happening now. I'm really upset.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think that it's expected. If you read what Andrew Breitbart said, like almost 10 years ago, I mean, he saw all the stuff coming, and in my view, the very simple reason is because postmodern culture mixed with this shift towards the left is basically catching hold of academia, and that's where it's laying its roots, and then it's basically just spreading from there.
No, absolutely. I was, and I risk exposing age here, but people know how old I am. So I was a freshman at university in 1982, and if anybody says they weren't alive, they're going to be dropped off the chat instantly. But no, you'll be blocked. No, I was a freshman.
I'm not that much younger than you.
No, but you're not the only one. I'm talking about the chat over here, Jeremy. Yeah. No, but so anyway, yeah. So. I was a freshman at university, and when I went to university in 82, I took, of course, the survey courses for Western civilization and other courses. I was a history major and things, English and such. And I didn't really see much of the leftist stuff, maybe because I was 17 at the time and I wasn't aware of it. But I think it really wasn't as prevalent. But I went back to university in 87, and I already saw it creeping in. I saw people who were postgraduate students, who were teaching assistants, who taught the survey courses and such that I still had to take, who were pushing leftist agendas. I had a guy in a class that I learned an awful lot about in, but I had to wade through all of his BS and his worldview because he wasn't teaching me. He was pushing his worldview, but the content was engrossing enough that I could ignore that. But I had also been exposed to the world at this point, served in the Army, served overseas in the Cold War, and I was coming back in my early 20s instead of being 17. And so I think I was better equipped to deal with this onslaught of nonsense. But now I know people have kids in school, and they just get abused in school. I mean, if you write something that's contrary. Now, this isn't universal, but it's prevalent in the American university system. If you write something that a professor doesn't agree with you, oftentimes you're penalized for it. Well, I had students that wrote stuff for me at the War College, and what they wrote I completely disagree with. But it was well researched, it was reasonable analysis, and they came to a different conclusion. And that's what a university is for, universal ideas.
Yeah. I've spoken to Peter Boghossian. I don't know if you know him. He's from Portland University. He's fantastic. And James Lindsay, as well as Andrew Doyle, who's otherwise known as Titania McGraw on Twitter. All three of them are lefties, and yet all three of them are so critical and disillusioned by this shift leftwards. There's this global, this is weird. This is a weird thing that's happening globally. It's this openly aggressive attack on all things white, male, straight, Judeo-Christian. That's it. That's basically it, right?
Yeah.
If you are white, male, and straight, you are the greatest evil of the world. And heaven forbid that you happen to subscribe to some sort of Judeo-Christian value system. Then everything about you is terrible. But that in itself is what represents the West. And the West is now considered the world's great evil. And I think there's this weird zombie-like lemmings collective low-hanging fruit attack of this whole idea. And I'm not sure if there is any end goal.
Well, it's a cult. It's a religion. And it's what I've always said about climate change. The climate change people are part of a religious cult. Now, what I mean by that is, if I say that, of course, immediately, you're a climate denier. No, climate changes. It's changed throughout our history based on the rotation of the Earth, based on the distance from the sun, based on solar flares, based on lots of things, based on things that actually happen on the surface of the Earth. And yes, human-induced climate change is a real thing. But do we destroy the world's economy for a marginal improvement, or do we continue to use science to develop better technology to reduce emissions and clean things better? And these people are just nuts. You get this Swedish girl who becomes the poster child of this nonsense and is exploited for it. Not that I have any empathy for her. She's happily gone to the gallows with them of her own volition. But it's just really, really sad. And you can't reason with these people because everything's emotional. And the moment you get into conversation with someone you think is cogent, friendships end and professional relationships end. It's happened to me. I was mentioning in the earlier stream about someone from Congressional Research Service whom I collaborated with and was a source for many wonderful products that she wrote for Congress, because they have a fantastic research arm, which you would think would lead them to make better decisions than they make, but it doesn't. So Congress has this great research arm. Anyway, so this whole thing, the day that Trump was inaugurated, I won't go into the whole story, but she was at the demonstrations and she sent pictures on Facebook, and it was very different than what the media was portraying. And I told her, I said, thank you, because you're showing me a side of it that we don't see, because I'm not in DC, and all we're seeing is people dressed as dripping vaginas, around little girls walking around, and people seeing this stuff. We have Madonna with her foul, crass, disgusting language and all that stuff, and threatening the White House. That's what the news is covering, whether it's MSNBC, CBS, Fox, they're all covering that. And she showed me pictures of people walking, properly dressed, behaving themselves in their neighborhood. And I said, well, thank you. Anyway, the conversation devolved into I eventually made the point. I said, well, look, this is not about all these things. It's not about equal pay. It's not about abortion. It's not about any of this stuff. Let's just be honest. The reason these people are out there demonstrating today, the day of inauguration, or after inauguration, is because they hate Trump. If they wanted to change these things, then they would have protested the week before the election in October, when you could change people's minds and it's fresh, or last summer when Congress was in session and you could change the minds of congressmen. It's not about changing anything. It's about expressing your distaste for Donald Trump. Why don't you just say that? And that was the end of our friendship. I was still serving active duty, and she wouldn't write to me anymore on work stuff. Anyway, so.
So I'm busy writing a series of blog posts now on my website about why people need to reclaim being right wing. I honestly think that it's a term that the left are trying to use as some sort of insult, and it's actually a compliment, and it needs to get reclaimed, and it needs to get reclaimed proudly. There's nothing wrong with being on the right, and there's nothing wrong with being conservative. There's nothing wrong with having a system of values, and there's nothing wrong with being a principled person. It doesn't mean that you are racist. It doesn't mean that you are sexist or homophobic. It doesn't mean any of that stuff. That's just what people would like it to mean on the left, but it doesn't actually mean that. Because, I mean, if we think about people on the left, and who's been evil and racist, I mean, you've got Stalin, and you've got Chairman Mao, and we can go on throughout history. Yeah, we can go on throughout history. So it doesn't really matter. You've got bad eggs on both sides of the spectrum. But what I think we need to do and I'm starting to say this openly now, is that people need to reclaim being right wing, and they need to also understand what it means to be right wing. Being right wing doesn't mean being a Nazi. That's not what it means.
No, it doesn't mean being fascist. That's just
No.
that's a further degree on that spectrum.
But even if it does mean, so what? It because you have to just look at what you mean when you say fascist. What I'm interested in is basically looking at the world, Chris, as it is, and not how it should be. I must look at it. People need to look at it as it is right now. That's reality. And the moment you start straying away from reality, that is when you start going down the road of utopia with like communism and socialism. These are all societal constructs they're designed from the top down to try and create a better society, and it doesn't work. It never has worked. Society is at its best when it's operating at its lowest level, and that's generally speaking community driven, bottom up approaches to things. Communities and small towns, not massive top down driven centrally governed states. That's the kind of thinking that you've got to get into, and that is true right wing thinking. It's basically understanding that we have individual agency to think for ourselves and to make our own decisions. We are tribal in the sense that we love our families, we love our friends, we love our communities, right? That's tribal. I don't mean tribal as in like in some Hollywood sense. I mean that we stick to our team. When you were in the army, you stuck to your team. That's being tribal. That's being loyal to that central nucleus. And there's nothing wrong with a hierarchical structure. In your home, you have a hierarchy. The father and the mother, and then the kids or whatever. I live in a complex. We have a hierarchical structure, and it works. We have a wall. Hey, walls work, Chris.
Yes, they do.
we have a wall. We have a gate.
Where is my wall on the southern border at, Donald Trump? I want it finished.
Yeah. The funniest thing now is that Antifa suddenly love walls as well.
Of course they do. They're erecting walls all over Portland and Seattle. People ask me. They said, so when this Chaz was formed there, they said whatever autonomous nonsense there. They said, what's going to happen? Why doesn't Trump do something? I said, well, first off, it's a local issue. It's not a federal issue, and you have to understand the system of federalism, which is more akin to the system you're talking about, how it comes up from the bottom. But I said, that's a simple solution. If I'm in charge of Seattle, I simply shut off the gas, the water, the electric. I put up borders and put up fences around this little self-declared autonomous state. I let the bastards starve to death, and when they come out emaciated, I introduce them to a new form of jewelry called bracelets and put it around their cuffs, around their wrist, and haul them off to jail, charge them with insurrection and instigating violence and the violent overthrow of the United States, and they'll never see the light of day again. And I don't care if it's 10,000 of them. I don't care if they're white. By the way, notice they're almost all white. Very few black people there. It's absolutely ludicrous.
Yeah,
it's absolutely
ridiculous. So if I can inspire you to read a book that will get you onto my page, and it's an incredible book, and I recommend everybody who's in the comments now go and buy this book for your Kindle or get the audiobook or whatever. It's called The Evolution of Everything by Matt Ridley. It is such a red pill book. It will blow your mind. It is phenomenal. It's not. Don't think of evolution in the sense of like bacteria and biology.
No. Development.
Language evolves.
Yes.
Technology evolves. Culture evolves. Ideas evolve. People evolve in the way we congregate, and it absolutely blows your mind when you read this book, and it makes you realize that there are so many things wrong with society, and it's so easy to fix them. All that you got to do is allow smaller groups of people to determine what's best for them. Communities, and in other words, the smaller the group of people, the easier it is to manage.
No, absolutely true. You know, what disturbs me about all this stuff, and this is what I talk about in the context of South Africa and the U.S., is that these clowns forget that there weren't governments at a certain stage of history. There were just people wandering around in bands, hunter-gatherers, collecting. And at some point, especially around the time that we started having formal agriculture in the Middle East and other places, we started to form governments to represent us. Now, maybe there were monarchies and empires, but we also eventually had representative governments. And what they forget is that they represent us.
Well, I'm a fan of monarchies, by the way.
Well, I am too. I really want to participate in the reed dance because I'd like to meet some nice, lovely young ladies in Swaziland, but that's just me. I suppose that'll be the day I do have a drink in my hand anyway. Anyway, it's good to be the king. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard about my life's ambition. I've always had the ambition to be the benign dictator of a small African country, and until recently, the prime candidates were Lesotho and Swaziland, or Eswatini, the e-commerce capital of Africa. And so now...
Not Wakanda.
No. Wakanda. Well, now I'm considering being the benign dictator of the Western Cape after secession. We'll see how that goes, but that's another story. Yeah. But no, these people forget that they represent us, and they govern with our approval and our consent. And they seem to forget that, and it really irritates me because it's very frustrating, and that's the arrogant elite behavior of politicians, whether it's in the ANC in South Africa and other parties too, or here in the U.S. Republicans and Democrats, they lose sight of this. Now, famously in our country, Germ, at the outset, we were very suspicious of a strong central government, and hence we had the Articles of Confederation. So after we declared independence, we wrote this loose charter, which was allied the states. The original 13 colonies. But what happened is that states would impose tariffs to cross the state lines. They would come up with their own currencies and local banks, and it was all chaotic. And the central government was so weak, it didn't have the power of taxation that it couldn't even defend the country. So we realized this, and then we wrote the Constitution. 1787 was ratified in 1789 when 3/4 of the states ratified it. So that system came in place, and it created a stronger central government, but nonetheless, it's still a weak one. But as we get to the 20th century, our central government has become ever more increasingly powerful. And it all started with the imposition of the federal income tax in 1913, or 1940. Prior to that, we never had an income tax, 1913. And ever since then, it's been that. Then the Depression came, and the government overreached and took powers it didn't have authorized in the Constitution. And then from there, the Second World War, the state grew even more, then the security state for the Cold War. And now it's just a natural inclination for people. I mean, look at this. Minnesota's like, we need money to rebuild our city. Hey, footsack, piss off. You people destroyed it. You want our tax dollars to fix your city because you pulled your law enforcement back and allowed your city to be destroyed by an armed insurrection? No, I'm sorry. That's your problem. But the natural inclination now, and it is the same in South Africa, the government will fix it for us. Well, the government's made up of people. Many of them are bureaucrats, and a lot of them are not particularly effective or efficient at what they're doing. No. It's like our members of Congress. People revere members of Congress. Hey, guys, listen. Most members of Congress are just used car salesmen or ambulance-chasing lawyers who have the gift of gab and manage to get elected and not have a scandal that exposes their foibles. That's who they are. Now, there are legitimate lawmakers, but I'm saying don't venerate these people. Show respect for the office. Like, I'm a colonel, you respect a colonel, but that doesn't mean you respect me unless you know me. And so people get carried away with politicians. They act like, I see this stuff, Cyril's going to save us because he's Kosa or he's Vendor. No, he's not.
He's the worst president. I think he's the worst president in South African history.
And surpassing Jacob Zuma is quite an accomplishment to get that title.
Yeah, but he definitely is worse than Zuma. I see that Elizabeth says the issue I have is some people say if you're not religious or Christian, you can't be a good person. No, I think you can be. And remember, also religions have evolved and morality has evolved. And this is an important thing. You can be a good person and be an atheist. And you can be an evil person while being a Christian. You know.
Yes, there have been plenty of evil Christians. Yes.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean Christianity is evil. And remember, Christianity has been involved in the Crusades, and so is Islam. But remember, if it wasn't Christianity or Islam involved in the Crusades, there would have been another religion involved in them. It's just the way the progress of society goes. But you can be a good person no matter who you are in the world and no matter what you believe, and you can be a bad person no matter who you are. I mean, for goodness sake, man. The cover-ups at the Vatican.
No, absolutely. Well, let me just look at the sex abuse scandals that take place. I think that's what you're referring to. No, absolutely. It's interesting because people. So I was in Tunisia. I attended the L'École d'État Major, which is the staff college. I was a student there in Tunisia, which is taught in French, that was something. But anyway, so I spent 10 months doing that course. A course, by the way, in my army, we spend about 6 weeks doing, but I did it for 10 months in Tunisia. Anyway, one of my classmates was from Niger, Ibrahim Mamadou Bagadoma, who is at some point became...
Say that again?
Ibrahim Mamadou Bagadoma.
I love it when you talk foreign.
Isn't it? It's a very sexy name too. Anyway, but he's a wonderful gentleman. He's a Muslim, of course, from Niger. And at some point, he became the chief of the gendarmerie there because he was a gendarmerie officer. Anyway, Ibrahim at the time was a major, a commandant, and I was a captain. And we were best of friends in the course because we're two of the foreigners, not many foreigners. And I would have barbecues or brides over at my house, and only the foreign students came because the Tunisians, they couldn't visit foreigners, even people that were working with them, because they would be interrogated and arrested for collaborating with foreigners at the time. So I would invite my classmates, and they never show up. And finally, I got tired of it. One of the guys says, "Hey, Wyatt, you do realize that we can't come to your house because we'll get arrested." I'm like, "What?" Anyway, but so Ibrahim and I were the best of friends. And one day, Ibrahim said to me, he said, because we went on a trip, we went to visit one of these old Roman sites because they're all over Tunisia. And I took him out there, and we came back, and we're just having a Coke or a cup of coffee, something like that. And he said, you're a very moral person. I said, what do you mean, Ibrahim? He goes, no. He said, you're a very moral person. You're well-grounded. You treat people well. And that's because of Christianity. I said, well, but Ibrahim, I'm not a devout Christian. I mean, I believe that there's something out there, but I mean, I don't attend church and such. He goes, no. But you have to understand, Chris, your society is founded on Judeo. This is what he was telling me. Your society is founded, and he'd also lived in the States and attended school, so it wasn't like it was alien to him. He said, your society is founded on Judeo-Christian beliefs. And that moral basis has been an anchor, whether you believe in faith or not. It has guided your country throughout history. And he said, that's why, one of the reasons why you're a moral person. And I thought about it, and I realized that there's a lot of merit to what he said. I'm not a particularly devout person, but that is certainly, you don't have to be a person of deep faith to be a good person or moral person.
No, I mean, I'm a cultural Christian. It's a term that I heard Douglas Murray say, and it's a wonderful term. And I think that more and more people, like I said earlier, more people need to reclaim the term right wing or conservative. I also, and proudly so, I think more people need to reclaim Western values and Christian values if they want, and be proud of it. It's very uncool these days to be part of that sort of group of people. You're seen as this I don't know, you're seen as some sort of archaic what do you call it, like some remnant of history. Now if you are a Christian, or you are white, or you're male, or you support the West, like if you say I support the West, like suddenly what's wrong with you? Are you a racist? Why must you be so exclusive? And by the way, there's nothing wrong with being exclusive. This idea of inclusivity is nonsense.
Yeah. No, it's funny you should mention that, because it's just a bastardization of the English language. So let me explain what I mean by that. So I hear all the time that people think that discrimination is wrong. It's not.
It's normal.
We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for discrimination. I mean, do I walk out there?
People discriminate daily. People discriminate every single day.
That's right. Do I walk out in the traffic right there, or do I look left and right and make sure that it's safe to go out there? Do I exit the cave, or do I wait for that saber-toothed cat to move on to another spot? The problem is when people use discrimination to unfairly bias or against someone else. That's the problem. But we discriminate all the time. Listen, you can't join the U.S.
Even that isn't really a problem. Let me qualify that. That.
Please do.
If you honestly think about it, let's say there's a pub now that only lets in Indian people. Right. We only want Indian men in this pub.
Now, is it a club or a public pub?
Well, it's a pub. Okay, so it's on the street.
But a pub is a public location. That's why I asked. I'm playing word games.
Oh, I mean a pub as in a
club.
bar.
It's a club. Sorry. It's a private bar.
Yeah, a bar. Sorry.
No, okay. Well, I'm playing word games with you, but it is a distinction.
Yeah, no problem. I won't have a problem with that. I won't be allowed in, and I'll say, okay, fine. I'll go find a place that wants me in. Now, what the problem here is that people go, oh, no, everybody must be allowed in no matter what. Why? Why can't you have a girls' only club? Why can't you have an Italian club down the road where the only people who are allowed in the club are Italians? All right? There's nothing wrong with this. A gentleman's club. These days, there is no such thing as a gentleman's club in South Africa anymore because it's considered discriminatory. It's sexist. Now women must be allowed. Why? Why can't I go to a venue for one evening with just men, and we can talk about cars and watch sports and eat peanuts and drink draft beer?
Yeah, no, I don't have a problem with what you're talking about, and I agree with it. But the distinction is, I was talking about the state discriminating. So, for instance, the state can discriminate on a religion basis. So, if you want to enter the U.S. Army and you have no legs, you can't. We discriminate against that because you can't do the task.
Yeah, and you can't fly an airplane if you're blind.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But my point is that people, they bastardize the use of the word as if it's evil.
yeah,
Anytime you hear the word discrimination in America, it's as if it's an evil thing. It's not. Now,
yeah.
along your point, this is the most ludicrous thing in the world. So Robert Baden-Powell must be spinning in his grave to find out that the Boy Scouts aren't the Scouts. They're the Scouts now because girls, because of a lawsuit, are allowed into a private organization. And the Girl Scouts have not been pressured to put boys in it. But why would you want to go? But the point is that they've completely destroyed it. There are differences between the genders. There's a reason why there were Boy Scouts and Weeblos and Campfire Girls and Girl Scouts. But this whole thing gets obliterated by this nonsense. We don't have officer clubs in the Army anymore because it was seen as elite. Well, they decided to destroy that about the time I became an officer, so I never really got to enjoy the officer clubs at all.
Right.
Now, bear in mind that I was enlisted. I was a young soldier, and I was a non-commissioned officer, and then an officer. But I don't have any arrogance towards one side or the other. It's a different distinction, a different status, and there's a reason why you have these clubs. So you socialize amongst each other because we're not allowed to fraternize with enlisted soldiers. It's just crazy stuff. By the way, before we get any further, several people keep saying that we can have Bianca Von Vick. No, you have her. She's your headache. You keep her, and we'll give you Trevor Noah back in the deal. He's welcome to take him back at any time.
No, I don't want Trevor Noah back here.
Well, we don't want him here. This guy's oh god, he was funny.
Drop off in the ocean somewhere.
Maybe, yeah, he was funny. Maybe his plane doesn't make it back. But he was funny at times in South Africa in that South African context. But the moment he landed on this shore, he was not remotely funny.
But Chris, I mean, my wife is on the same side of the argument. She's like, please go and have a boys' weekend away. I'm happy. I'm happy for you to go away, and I will have a girls' weekend. And I mean, that's what I do when I go hunting. It's a boys' weekend. Now, you can't officially have that because it's sexist, and someone is going to get upset and outraged because everybody wants to be in everybody's business.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the problem.
It's so freaking annoying, right? If I'm not Italian, which I'm not, tough cheese. I can't go to the Italian club. There we go. That's fine. That's it. I'll accept it. I'm not Italian. If I'm short, Chris, and I want to play basketball, well, guess what? I'm most likely never going to be a successful basketball player in my life.
That's true, because the net's not coming in any lower. But you're absolutely right. It's incredibly frustrating. So, and of course, in this country, we had a very strong German-American culture for a long time because Germans were a heavy component here. In fact, Pennsylvania, the state that I live in, was overwhelmingly German at independence. And there was a strong argument to make German the official language of the new United States because there's so many Germans in Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania in particular. But they did go with English. Anyway, but all around me, all the surnames are German in villages and towns around here. All the major landmarks are German. But what happened was, I lost track of where I was going with that. Sorry, I had a point. Senior moment there. Sorry. I'll get back to it.
No, it's fine. I'm going to shoot soon anyway. What is the time? Oh, it's almost 11. Yeah, and I'm my throat's really dry from my own show.
What did you do today? Did you do a stream or?
I did a stream at 8:00. So who did I even talk now?
With? You're competing with Ronaldo. Okay.
No, it was with Mark Oppenheimer. No, we did it. It was just an off the cuff thing. And yeah, Ronaldo got upset. Because I'm like, well, why are you doing it at the same time as me? I was like, I didn't even think about it. Sorry. Yeah. Well, that's great. If ours is boring, everyone will go to your channel.
So Mark Oppenheimer, he's the attorney that's got the really long hair, right?
Yes, Jan van Riebeck.
Yeah, no, he's brilliant. I really enjoyed his conversations. So I'll have to go back and watch your stream. Cool.
Yeah, it was a fantastic stream. Absolutely wonderful conversation. It had so few people watching, but that doesn't change the fact that it was a wonderful conversation. And then tomorrow morning, I'm chatting with Conscious Caracal.
Yeah, I had him on yesterday. We could have gone on forever, but
he's a good guy.
No, he's fantastic. I mean, young kid. He's really got his head on straight. And I really enjoyed the conversation because, of course, from the outside looking in, what I can share is how the world views South Africa, or at least how they report on it, not how they view it necessarily. And like I said to him, I said, one of the reasons I wanted to have you talk about is when we talked about him and his background, and eventually got around to Afroforum. And I said, some of the misconceptions and stereotypes about Afroforum, of course, are perpetuated by South African media, which is disingenuous, and by politicians. And I said, of course, if you didn't know better, you would think that AfriForum exists only to deal with the needs of white Afrikaans-speaking farmers. But in fact, that's not it. It's a minority rights organization, and they've done stuff for the Basotho people, for the Tswana people, and for others. And so he got a chance to talk about that. And we had a really good stream with the chat. Some people came in the chat and through the standard stuff. Well, yeah, all they care about is this, and all they care about that. And for instance, somebody said, yeah, if they would quit crying genocide, people would take them seriously. Well, my response was that I don't follow AfriForum that closely, but I am very familiar with them, and I've never heard them say that. Now, I could have missed it, but Ant said, no, we've never said it. In fact, he said, I challenge anybody to find any of my videos in which I claim there's a white genocide. And so what I really liked about it is that it was an honest discussion, and he got a chance to refute some of the nonsense and maybe open up people's eyes about what AfriForum's all about. So I enjoyed it. He's a really good guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of AfriForum, and I've been working with him for years, actually. So I know them very well. I know the guys quite well, and they're all really good folks. But yes, a thought I can leave you with.
Sure.
So what if you have an organization that is a special interest group, like, I don't know, white people or black women, or dare I say it, autistic people? What is wrong with special interest groups, and why do people have such an issue with it? I'm not saying that you must now necessarily go and support them. That's not what I'm saying. You are welcome to. It doesn't bother me. But what's wrong with it?
But
are they harming? Are they harming anybody?
No, but Jeremy, but people don't have a problem with it as long as it's not white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, male, Western, capitalist. If it's any of those things, then obviously it's wrong. You can have it. Here we have tons of special interest groups that lobby in D.C. for all sorts of things. We have oodles of Jewish American groups, and nobody attacks them. We have oodles of we have Muslim, we have CARE, which has got ties to terrorist organizations. The Committee for Islamic American Relations. We've got all these things. So they're never attacked, and I think this all starts, you kind of alluded to earlier in our discussion, we were talking about education. It starts there in education. Number one, the weak education, in my view, that citizens get in this country, and certainly in South Africa, in the public education in primary and secondary school is abysmal. On average, it's abysmal. And so we don't have young adults that are properly prepared for the world, don't understand civics, their system of governance, their role in it, economics. So they're walking illiterate literates. That's what they are. That's the first thing. So the education. And then those who go on to university, we see people enmeshed in all this nonsense about gender studies and distorting the history of the world and attacking everything from the West, the things that have made much of the world successful.
And so these days it's very politically incorrect to take a stance in defense of white, male, straight, and sort of Judeo-Christian, Anglo-Saxon. And I think people need to basically take that position. It's the unpopular position, but I think it's the correct position to have. Somebody needs to protect those values. And I think it will do us well in the end if people do fight the good fight.
No, I agree, absolutely. DJ Swag D just subscribed. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. There was the zombie climbing the hill again, so I appreciate that. No, it really is frustrating because but here's the thing. I get a kick out of this because I've been called some of the most horrific things on LinkedIn, and this, of course, when I was a serving officer in my dress uniform with my ribbons and my title there, clearly stating who I was. And people attack me for all sorts of things. I've been called a racist, KKK, colonizer, and I mean, not even.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, as a serving military officer, that in the U.S. that's kind of out of bounds. People don't attack you for that sort of thing. That's considered bad form by even the left is considered that bad form, at least until recently. But it's frustrating, but I don't change where I'm at. I mean, I treat everyone equal and fairly. And for instance, like this whole thing with lockdown when it started.
No, I'm going to stop you right there. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Treat everybody equally and fairly. No.
Okay.
You shouldn't be doing that. Let me tell you why.
Okay.
I don't treat an old person the same as I treat a young person. I will stand back and let them go through. I'll give them a priority. I treat them with a lot more dignity and respect. If I'm at the airport and there's someone in a wheelchair, I'll let them go first. I'm not treating them equally. I'm giving them preference.
Okay, I see where you're coming from. And okay, all right. So maybe
women, I'll let women through the door first. I know that some feminists get offended by that, but I don't really care. It's the chivalry that my mom taught me, and I still use it to this day. I'll step back and let a woman go through first. I'm not treating her the same as I'm treating a man. You see
Okay,
what I'm saying?
I see what you're getting at, but maybe I should be more nuanced in my discussion. So, for instance, let me give an example here. So, in the military, we have different status. We have active officers, we have reserve and National Guard officers who are activated to serve. So, for instance, I had a major that worked for me in Botswana. He was top drawer, did a brilliant job. He was a pain in my ass at times because he thought he was the boss and I was the boss, and I had to occasionally rein that in. But that's okay. I didn't want to turn off that energy because he was very good at what he did. He also had a lot of potential. So what happened is that I recommended him for his evaluation, and I sent it up, and it was sent back to me, and instead of a top level rating, it was given a good rating, not an outstanding rating. And I said, excuse me, what's going on here? And they said, well, he's a reservist, a National Guardsman, and so they don't get the top rating. I said, no, our job is to pick the best leaders for the military, and the reservists are activated. And if we're only picking the best leaders amongst the active duty guys, then how do we know who the good leaders are in the reserve component who would get promoted to become general officers? So what I mean by equal and treat, to me, the fact that he was reservist or active duty wasn't germane. It was that individual and his capacity and his ability. That's what I'm talking about. If he'd been a dud, then I would have given him a dud rating because he would have earned it. But he earned it, and they were saying no. And I think that was unfair. That's what I'm talking about. Equal. I get your point. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
So when. Yeah, and sorry, I suppose it's almost a little bit of wordplay, but I'm busy reading. I'm busy reading books about this at the moment, so like my mind is very in tune. And one of the things that people often talk about is equality and equal treatment and all this kind of stuff. And the more I'm realizing that that's nonsense, and that's all the same as communist thinking.
Of course it is. What you're talking about is equality of outcomes, and I have a real issue with that nonsense because there's no such thing. What you get is equality of misery from that. Each their own. Each people have different capacities, and this equality of outcomes is nonsense, and that's what people like the ANC are trying to achieve, and it's just wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, so we must treat people differently. In my view, inequality is desirable. Equality is not desirable. I think inequality is reality, and inequality leads to innovation, invention, and competition. If somebody is higher up the ladder than I am, it motivates me to work harder to get up the ladder. Also, if I see someone with a yacht or whatever, right? Like how do they get there? Oh, I must work harder to get there, or something. That is basically the idea of competition. It's the idea of inequality. If we were all at the same place, we would have no desire to compete. And so that's why. And in actual fact, it was Jordan Peterson who said that inequality is desirable.
Well, no, it's interesting you say that because let me make 2 points about this that I always talk about. So, number one, I've already made a big point I talk about is that this equality of outcomes is just nonsense. It's pure cock. The second is like minimum wage. Excuse me. If you have if you set a minimum wage of $15, then you've just devalued the dollar. Because if everybody starts out at $15, then what's $5 worth? It's not the same. It has a broader impact on the economics. And the third is what I call T-ball culture. Now, you're probably not familiar with this because it's American, it's baseball. When little kids start playing baseball, it's not a simple thing to do. Look, however you feel about baseball, successfully, consistently getting on base is very difficult because players are all over the field. You get thrown different pitches that come in different angles, different speeds, and you're swinging a small stick. In cricket, you got a wide bat. That's got a big face on it.
Yeah.
But in baseball, it's a round thing. It's very difficult. And if you're good at it, that's impressive. But even the best players only are good at it 30% of the time. So it's tough. But what we do for little kids who are 6, 7, 8 years old, we have something called T-ball. So they stand at home plate, and there's no pitcher. The players stand on the field, and they have this little thing on top of the plate, and on the top of it's got a rubber hose, and you put the baseball on top of that. And then you tell the kid to swing, so the ball's not moving. And that's T-ball. So what we've done is we've leveled the playing field so everybody's equal, and they all start from the same spot. But that's not life. Life is a competition, and this is something leftists don't want to admit.
Exactly.
And if you don't believe life is a competition, just look at COVID-19. It's strands of RNA adapting to an environment, finding host, and surviving. Ebola the same way. Life is a competition, and if you don't believe it, the viruses and bacteria will get you.
And some people in the comments are talking about why must we compete in life or whatever. This is the thing. It's not a question of why. It's the fact that it's biology. You can't get around it. We compete. I chose my wife based on beauty and all kinds of things. I didn't settle for mediocre. I competed against myself. I wanted to find the best partner that I want to spend, my life with. in terms of the way you do your house, you're competing with yourself and your other friends and whatever to have a nice TV. It doesn't matter what it is. Everything is competing. Everything from your health to being better. I don't know. You want your sense of morality to be better than the day before. You want your sense of worth to be better than the day before. That's competition, and that is the natural order of things.
Absolutely.
Saying that we need to work together, sure. In the comments, I see that, but no. Who said so? It's human. It's normal human behavior to work together. We are essentially primates, like the rest of the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is based on competition, and it is also harmonious. If it wasn't harmonious, there wouldn't be an animal kingdom millions of years later.
No, it would have been wiped out. Or there'd be
would have
just
been wiped
one
out.
species,
It's the natural order of things to work together. You don't have to be told that. It's when people get into everybody's faces the whole time that conflict arises, and then you end up with more hatred. You don't need to be told or to be managed in terms of working together. People will naturally do it. People will naturally help those in need. You don't have to learn to help someone who's struggling. If someone is lying on the side of the road, okay, it takes a real
heartless person,
heartless dickhead to ignore that person.
Yeah.
Okay, because we are wired to help those in need. All right, where possible.
Right. No, and actually, there's two things in the comments I want to go really quickly. Elizabeth, who's been very generous in super chats earlier today, so once again, thank you for those, Elizabeth, in my earlier discussion with Phil Craig. But Elizabeth says she has a question. It's your responsibility to help those less fortunate. No, but we as a culture and society are hardwired to do that. And as Jerem says, it takes a truly heartless jerk to ignore someone who's suffering. So it's not your responsibility to help those who are suffering or are less fortunate, but it is certainly our nature for many of us to try to help those who are less fortunate. That's not an obligation or responsibility. That's just a cultural norm that we've by and large accepted. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's good to have compassion for others, but when a state forces compassion, that's not genuine. You know, the state trying to achieve equality of outcomes. And there was another thing over here that I wanted to get really quickly. Just got ahead of me here. Sorry.
Or someone says that why, if it's about competition, why can't you just take somebody's stuff if you're stronger?
That's not competition. That's theft.
Yeah, but also keeping in mind that you can do that, but there are a couple of things that stop you from doing it. Number one, you probably know intrinsically that you're going to get some sort of pushback. I mean, if you just come into my house and try and take my stuff, you know that I'm probably going to shoot you with a gun, or I'm going to punch you or something, right? So there's that. So there's a sense of self-preservation. The other thing is that we also are self-aware. We happen to be the only species that is self-aware that we know of, and we are aware that it is not a desirable behavior to just take somebody else's stuff and think that it's not going to be met with some resistance. So what we do as humans who are self-aware, we negotiate. We figured that if we want something, we can find a way to trade for it, rather than just taking it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The question I saw here was from Tian. He said, compete does not mean destroy. And that's correct.
Exactly.
Competition doesn't mean destruction. But what can happen is that we get this notion that competition is bad because of popular press, popular media, like Hollywood, the way they portray things. Like, the movies they make about Wall Street. It's all about, defrauding or cheating the other guy. And then we see people actually do this sort of thing. And people seem to think that that's competition. No, it's not. No, it's not. Competition is just a fact of life. It's just the way things are. And whether if we could, as human beings, as a species, just stop competing, but then the world's going to eat us alive. Bugs, bacteria, fungi, viruses, sunlight.
The reason why we are here, the reason why humans are the apex predators, is because of competition.
We're the best competitors.
Humans evolved and ended up at the top of the food chain, not because of brute strength. We absolutely are not strong. I mean, we can take on just about no wild animals. But our strength came from this thing that evolved, our brain. And our brain is what took us to the top of the food chain. And that's how we are the most vicious predator that exists, and that's through competition.
No, no, absolutely. I mean, look at all the other species of hominids that have come before and gone. You've got Neanderthals who lived for a very long time, very successful, but we've outlasted them. We've outlasted Homo naledi. We've outlasted Homo africanus. The list goes on and on. The hobbits.
But again, remember, and I mean, and this is the thing. If we really wanted to wipe out other stuff, we would have long time ago, Chris. But we don't, because we also we are wired to be caring. Men are more powerful than women, yet men have never wiped out women. Throughout history, there've been some horrible atrocities, but it's been balanced out. Men have also protected women using their strength, because also we know that we need women.
to replicate.
So I love being with the woman. I wake up next to her and she's my wife. I'd much rather have her than not have her. You know what I mean? And so we also have this. We have this sense of caring, and that's also what makes us these wonderful beings. I think that the majority of humans are decent. I don't think the majority of us are evil.
No, I'm with you. So, Jean-Andre J just subscribed. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Listen, I almost feel like I'm watching Roman, man. We feel this is way too philosophical here.
I need to shoot. I need to shoot anyway. My throat is dry. I actually need to go to bed.
No, I'm just teasing. Though it feels like an episode of Roman here. So.
No, but it's great, man. It's great. I'll send you an email, and we can set up for something this week. Okay?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll come on your channel and then maybe talk Africa instead of philosophical stuff. This has been fun.
No. I want to chat. I actually want to chat to you about your actual military stuff.
Okay. So should I tell the truth, or because I might have to have you taken out? No.
No, you can have me taken out. But I'll first brag with my. Where is it? I've packed away all my cool blades and things. Okay, never mind.
Joe Emilio and I were joking because I think he's getting triggered by a lot of stuff that's happening in South Africa, and people have been giving him a hard time about something he said about Trump, in favor of Trump. Anthony Williams just subscribed. Thank you. But so they give him a hard time, and I told him yesterday. I sent him a voice note. And I said, "Listen, Joe. It's a little difficult at the moment because U.S. Africa Command's assets have been downsized recently because of the conflict in the Sahel. So I was just concerned about your safety and welfare in case we have to do a non-combat evacuation operation for South Africa. I need to know where we need to pick you up and get you out. But you should know." And he sent me a note back and he said, "Yeah, just send a helicopter here." And I said, Listen, Joe, you are just a civilian. I'm a colonel. The helicopter's for me. You're going to be on a Baki. That's how we're going to get you out to the airport." So anyway, but just having a little fun with you.
Yeah. All right. I am tired. I'm going to go. Right. Chris, I'll chat to you. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Jerome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate you coming on. We'll get together this week. I'm going to go ahead. Where's the camera at there? Why don't you drop off because I've just got your picture here. And
all right, cool, man.
All right, cool.
Cheers.
Man. Okay, catch you later. Bye. All right, folks, that was Jeremy from Germ Warfare. That was pretty cool. That was unsolicited. Where's he at? There he is. Get away from there. Unsolicited, and he popped in on the chat. That was a lot of fun, and he wasn't drinking, and it's honestly, he wasn't drinking. You saw it here. So, hey, folks, thanks for tuning in. Wow, this went for over 2 hours. That was not the intent, but I think a lot of us, the reason I did the stream this afternoon was because I think some of us were kind of triggered by Bianca Van Wyk and the nonsense that she was spewing on Ronaldo's channel. So I thought it'd become here a good cathartic release for folks. We did it. Pikachu helped me get through it. My therapy, Hemmsbach, helped me get through it. Anyway, and of course, my always ever-present little Springbok helped me get through it. And you guys helped me get through it. So thanks a lot for tuning in and joining me for the conversation. It was really cool. Jerm, thanks a lot for playing along and calling in. It was a lot of fun. Very philosophical discussion. And you saw from the conversation with Jerm and I, a lot of agreement on things, but nuance about the way you say it, And so I like his approach, and I guess you'll see me on his channel later this week at some point, and then he'll be on my channel. We'll get him on here, but it should be interesting. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in. It's been a lot of fun. My new enemy says, was skeptical as usual, but really enjoyed this stream. What are you skeptical about? Please share that before I go. I don't want to go. I want to hear about that. So what are you skeptical of? Are you skeptical of something I've said or something Jerm said or the topics? So please share that. Elizabeth, you need therapy. Yeah, we all need therapy after Bianca. I mean, the self-loathing, the intellectual dishonesty, the unwillingness to have a cogent conversation and be inflexible in your worldviews and act as if you have all the answers. Now, I've been accused of that, but I think if you actually follow my conversations, read the things I write, my published articles, you'll find that I am willing to have a discussion, and I'm even willing to admit that if I'm off a little bit there. But no, I really would like to know what my new name, pray for Chaz, who Chaz Bono, Pinar van Wyk. But my new name was skeptical about something, but he enjoyed the stream, or he or she enjoyed the stream. Well, I'm glad you did. Thanks to everybody who joined the channel during this stream today. Thank you so much for joining. Also, thank you so much for the super chats that came early at the beginning of the stream from Slot and from Gus. A big one there, 140 Rand, and also Marius Krutkamp. Thank you so much. Always cautious of streams. Okay, no, that's fair, my new name. Let's see. Oh, there's Joe Emilio. All right, cool beans. Joe, I hope you didn't mind me telling that story. It's I appreciate that. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who've started following my channel and become loyal viewers and subscribers, thank you so much. But I was also kind of skeptical of YouTube for a very long time, mostly because I was a serving officer and I couldn't just go on and spew and say whatever I wanted to. But I decided to make it part of my strategic consultancy, and that was the purpose of this channel. I was going to take my existing channel and expand it into supporting my consultancy. But because of the lockdown and losing consultancy business, and a lot of money, by the way, and a lot of people suffering in South Africa because of the draconian, capricious governance of the African National Congress and the National Coronavirus Command Council, I felt it was important to share an outside view and also do the stream. So that's why I did it. So I understand people's skepticism about streams, but listen, you can tune in. I go back and read the comments after this, and I see some people watch my prepared videos, and it's clear that they don't watch it, or they just came just to spout that, oh, you said this, that, and the other. Like somebody said something to me on my prepared video about Beckett Sile, and they said something about, what about the horrors of apartheid, and how come this, that, and the other. And I wrote and I said, well, who's praising apartheid? You've never heard me praise apartheid once in my life, and you never will. It was a brutal system of unfairness for everybody, and it discriminated against everybody. Ask the white South Africans who were banned and lived under that. Ask the white South Africans who were in prison who lived under that. Now, the numbers are pale in comparison to other groups, but the point is it was an oppressive system for everyone. That's why Sun City came to exist. Saul Kersner created Sun City so that Dutch Calvinists could get away from the oppressive system under apartheid South Africa, go to Sun City, act crazy, enjoy themselves, drink, carouse, and not be in trouble in society. So the end of apartheid was a good thing, but I never advocated that. But people just come on and do what they want, and that's fine. If they want to do that, that's fine. We can't take them seriously. But those of you who have come on and contributed to the conversation, and those who contributed super chats and super stickers and such, thank you so much. I appreciate all the questions. Yeah, Joe didn't mind at all. I'm glad Joe's a night owl, man. He's like me. He's up all the time. So Elizabeth says, keep up the great work. Well, thank you, Elizabeth. And also thank you again for the questions earlier in the previous stream with Phil Craig. I really appreciate it. And my apologies, folks, that we couldn't get Phil in for video, but his you could see his internet connection was atrocious. So hopefully next time he'll have a better connection. But I guess where he's at on Sundays, everybody's on the internet, so the bandwidth was thin. But anyway. So Paulie says, great show, great having. Yeah, it was great having Jerem come in. It was really cool. It's nice to see people who, it's like, I didn't know Ronaldo ever watched any of my shows, and actually he was watching it, but he wasn't showing up in the chat. I guess it's his shadow banning, so I switched over to the live chat, and I found out that Ronaldo was actually in there, so it was pretty cool. Tony, good to see you there. People are respectful here. Yeah, by and large, and even when people step out of the bounds and get a little cheeky, it's not particularly nasty. We've only had one or two people, and that was dealt with pretty quickly with moderators once I set some moderators up. But thank you all for being such a good audience and for being participants in this. Joe says, that's because I need to chat with you. Oh, okay. Joe, we'll chat when I'm done. Maybe I'll go water my lawn and unwind. But, Angie says, what do you think of Chaz, the new colonizer in the U.S.? Angie, what I think of Chaz is these are insurrectionists. They're creating armed insurrection against the authority of the United States and the various states and municipalities in which they've occupied land. And they should simply cut off all utilities, put fences around these locations, let them starve to death. And when they come out emaciated and their ribs exposed and dirty and grubby and smelling like feces because they can't flush toilets for 2 or 3 weeks, introduce them to the latest in jewelry called handcuffs, put the bracelets on them, lead them off to jail, charge them with insurrection and fomenting violence against the United States of America, try them, imprison them, and never let them see the light of day. Again, I have no empathy for these people. This is insurrection, and it cannot be tolerated in a civil society, in a just society. So I'm sorry. And for those who just got caught up in it, well, they could be forgiven and they could have a reduced sentence. But the instigators of this need to be dealt with in that fashion. But don't send the army in, don't send the National Guard in, don't send the police in. Just let them. They've already occupied this land, and the cities have refused to protect the businesses and the private residences that are in there. So those people are left to their own devices at this point. It's too late, and let them suffer their own consequences. And that's what I would do with these Chaz clowns. Anyway. What are they going to do about it? Well, if they're smart, they'll turn off all the public utilities, like I said, put a fence around them, and deal with them that way. Lord of the Flies, Washington State, Pinar van Wyk, that is a very good comparison. Why were they left this long? Angie, it's a complicated explanation, but it has a lot to do with the fact that if you look at the states we're talking about, in this case, Washington State and Oregon State, both of which have been controlled by extreme leftist progressives for decades, and the same with the mayors of Portland and Seattle, same sort of thing. These people have an objective, which is not governance and rule of law, and they don't care what happens. And so they've abdicated their responsibility. They've pulled back their law enforcement agencies and allowed this to happen. The problem is that it's a local issue. Unless these people actually say something like they're advocating the violent over, if they came out in public and said that, then the federal government has a role there. But short of that, the federal government can't simply roll troops into this area unless there's a clear indication that it's an insurrection against the authority of the United States. At this point, it's an insurrection on its surface against the authority of the states of Washington and of Oregon and of the municipal jurisdiction of Portland and Seattle. And so it's a local issue. It can be federalized, and it probably will be at some point. But the smart approach is not to antagonize them, not to give them all the snaps, the Instagram photos they want, the Facebook videos they want to post, the press coverage they want of the brutality and the overreaction of government authorities, and to further demonize law enforcement and the military. No, just let them starve. They think they can manage. They won't. They'll be hungry soon enough. You just don't let any of them out. And when they want to come out, they get arrested. That's how you deal with it. All right, so the commies are in charge. In many respects, they are. My new name says, what I hear is on the 4th of July, if they're still there, the West Coast bikers. No, in fact, in California, in a couple of different cities, the leftists who are organized, by the way, this isn't simply, people spontaneously protesting George Floyd. George Floyd's not even in the conversation. In fact, Black Lives Matter is moaning that these people have stolen their message and their message is being lost. Well, it is, because the message wasn't about George Floyd. It never was. Only in the first few hours, the first couple of days, was George Floyd even a factor. The rest of this is just virtue signaling nonsense and distortion of history. Listen, these idiots have defaced monuments of abolitionists in Philadelphia. They have damaged the multi-million-dollar monument to the 54th Massachusetts, an all-black regiment that was raised in the North from free blacks and former slaves that fought against the Confederacy and went into battle at Fort Wagner in South Carolina. And of course, famously, their colonel was Robert Gould Shaw, a white man, but a black regiment. And he died there. And of course, the Confederates just threw him in a common grave with all the black soldiers who died, didn't treat him as if he was an officer. So they have defaced and damaged that monument. Why? And if Black Lives Matter, why are they killing black police officers? And why are they attacking black-owned businesses in black neighborhoods, which they know are black-owned? Because it's not about Black Lives Matter, and it's not about George Floyd. It's about something entirely different. The effort by the extreme left and their derangement for Trump has failed time and time again. Not a Trump fan, but I do vote for Trump, interest full disclosure. But their derangement, nothing is too much for these clowns. They will destroy this country just to get rid of Donald Trump. Barack Obama was president of this country for 8 years. If anything, racial relations went very much in the opposite direction from the direction they had progressed for 40 years prior to Barack Obama and his racial baiting of society and racialization and everything. He was the junior Cyril Ramaphosa before Cyril Ramaphosa decided to be Julius Malema. So anyway, Barack Obama is dividing our society and bifurcating it. Donald Trump has done everything the opposite of that and made every effort to bring society back together and heal those wounds, despite the lies that are told about him by the press, that he's a homophobe, that he's anti-gay, that he's anti-black, and all this other nonsense. He got criminal justice reform passed, which Obama neglected, never dealt with in 8 years. The criminal justice reform was necessary because drug offenses had mandatory sentencing. And so you had a lot of young black men got caught up in the drug trade, and instead of going to jail for 2 or 3 years for minor offense, they would go automatically to third strike for 10 years or longer. And that created a very serious problem in the African American community with fatherless families and other things. Now, I'm not excusing criminal behavior, but the sentencing was the problem. And so criminal justice reform has addressed that. And the primary beneficiary of criminal justice reform was the black man in America. That's right, black men. And of course, Kim Kardashian and Jay-Z were famously on his side for this, but the media lied and distorted about this. Donald Trump has spent more time with black church leaders and community leaders than any other president in the history of the United States, repeatedly meeting with them, oftentimes once a week or several times a month with these folks throughout his presidency. And not cynically just to get votes, but because he actually cared. He's built more affordable housing in New York City than any other development. The list goes on and on. So I'm not trying to defend Donald Trump. I'm trying to be in the interest of full disclosure. But they do not like Donald Trump, and anything that they can do to destroy him, including destroying this country, is what matters to them. It's frankly incomprehensible to see a governor of a state intentionally subvert the U.S. Constitution. But that's what Governor Clanrobes Northam in Virginia has done to the Second Amendment. He has violated the Second Amendment with state laws, signing into laws that his leftist legislature has passed so that they can restrict gun ownership and take guns away from law-abiding citizens. The rest of the world may not have a Second Amendment, but we have a Second Amendment, a constitutionally guaranteed right to keep and bear arms. Bear arms means use them. It doesn't mean hang them on a wall as a historical artifact or anachronism. Yeah, so we have constitutional rights, and we have people actively undermining our Constitution. People who take an oath to swear to support and defend the Constitution. It's disturbing, but that's the nature of what's happening in this country and around the world these days. The ANC has famously been attempting to disarm South Africans, law-abiding South Africans, for decades now, almost since the day they came in power. Initially, they did it by passing a law to re-register guns, and then they didn't bother to deliver the forms to the stations where you're supposed to go to register it, thereby instantly creating hundreds of thousands of criminal South Africans intentionally. Now, they never followed through on criminalizing them, but they created the conditions to do that. So it's a tired, age-old process. It's what the Soviets did. They disarmed people in Russia who had hunting rifles and things like that, so they had no means to defend themselves against an oppressive state. No, anyway, there you go. Right, folks are taking off, so let's see what we got here. Tony, North Dakota town chased 3 busloads of Antifa out. Good for them. Yeah, they vandalized the Lincoln Memorial as well. That's absolutely right. But of course, now they're trying to rewrite history and paint Abraham Lincoln as a racist. The true story of Abraham Lincoln, he just wanted to send all the blacks back to Africa. Well, whether he wanted to send black people back to Africa or not isn't germane. He did sign the Emancipation Proclamation, and yes, it was a cynical tool to undermine the economy of the South by declaring slaves in the places that were liberated by Union armies to be free. But he never emancipated slaves north. That's true. But it set the stage for ending slavery, and preserving the Union made it possible to end slavery in the South. If we had not preserved the Union and allowed the states of rebellion to remain in rebellion as a separate country, slavery would have persisted into the 20th century in the Deep South. It eventually would have been a system that outgrew itself and would have been abolished eventually just because it wasn't economically profitable, but it would have continued into the 20th century in a minimum. But it was ended in 1865 formally, and we had 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to our Constitution. By the way, the United States ended the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, in 1807 with the passage of a restriction on trading slaves. Now, there were some slave ships that slipped through in the next 30 or 40 years, but they were criminal, and it was a small number. But we formally ended it. We didn't end institutional slavery, we did end the Atlantic slave trade. And the British enforced it with a blockade off the west coast of Africa. So there's a little bit of history for folks who weren't aware of it. Let me see the last few comments over here. So Chaz and company won't want police. They want rapper, drug lords, barriers, and checkpoints. Yeah, exactly. You're right, Angie. Keith says, Pete, oh, he's talking to Pete. My new name, mainstream media controlled by 6 companies, mostly news distributed by one authorized propaganda manager. It's actually funny watching this video displayed a whole set of channels. It's also funny watching the exact same adjectives used by every news person, you know. Oh, the most serious crisis, the catastrophic development. They use it, it's like they hand you the talking points. Here you go, better dressed chimpanzee, read this. Well, yeah, exactly. That's the mainstream media. It's unfortunate, but that's what it's become. Let's see. It's sad. It's so sad it's so sad they know nothing about history. It is sad. It's people, look, and ladies and gentlemen, it's not simply folks in this country, it's South Africans. And I don't mean to offend people, but it's even Afrikaners and English in South Africa and Zulu and Xhosa. There are all kinds of South Africans that don't know their own history. And I'm talking about their own ethnicity and of the country as a whole. And we hear all kinds of stuff. And people simply don't know. You know, a lot of South Africans seem to think that South Africa was created in 1652 with the arrival of Jan van Riebeeck, but it wasn't. South Africa did not become a country as such until 1910 with the Union of South Africa Act, a British Parliament Act which created out of the Cape Colony, the Natal Colony, the Zulu Kingdom, the Venda Kingdom, the Orange Free State, the Transvaal, All of these territories were incorporated into the Union of South Africa, and that is the birth of South Africa in 1910. Of course, in 1960, it achieved a different status as a republic, but 1910 it became an actual country. Before that, there was no South Africa. It was just a geographic spot on a map. There was no country of South Africa, and people seem to forget that. But anyway, I think that's enough. Clever Coffee. Now, is Clever Coffee, is that Talon? A serious threat to our democracy is the exact line. Yeah, no, it's a serious threat. Listen, folks, it's been 2 hours and 34 minutes, and a lot of folks are with me. And I appreciate it. But I think folks, and those who are in South Africa and Southern Africa, probably want to hit the rack for the most part. And I think Joe wants to have a conversation with me about getting him out of the country. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm going to go ahead and call it quits here in a second. But as usual, Stedten Nederlanders. What I'm going to, Tian says, rumor has it if SAA creditors vote tomorrow, the skies will open next week. Really? Well, let's see what they say. But SAA, once again, apparently they're not going to follow my advice. The African National Congress is going to continue to fund its prestige pet, stroking its ego. Not stroking my therapy Hemsbach, but stroking its ego with having a national carrier, a wholly unnecessary action, instead of privatizing SAA. And that's unfortunate for all South Africans and for people who buy tickets, and for the taxpayer in South Africa, and for the Treasury. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap it up right here. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you for the super chats and the super stickers, and thank you for the questions and comments. Thank you to Jeremy and Germ Warfare for jumping into the conversation. It was a lot of fun. It was very philosophical, but I enjoyed immensely. And I think that hopefully for those of us who tuned into Ronaldo Ho's show, that it wound up being a bit of therapy after listening to Bianca van Wyk, who I'm still just in my head spinning listening to the things I heard from her. Anyway, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you tuning my stream. Hey, please come in tomorrow if you're still here, because I have Unitha Akwaza. She's a businesswoman from the Western Cape. She's fantastic. Huge Twitter following. She'll be on tomorrow, a special feature that's 11 o'clock Eastern Standard in the U.S. and East Coast, and then at 5 p.m. in Gaborone, Johannesburg, and Cape Town, 4 p.m. in Windhoek, and in Abuja and London. Nobody ever asked me why I do that, why I say the U.S., which is the earliest, then South Africa, and then come back to Namibia, London, and Abuja. It's just a format I got to, even though the times go forward, backwards. Anyway. All right, folks, thanks a lot. I really appreciate tuning in. God bless. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Indaba Africa, the Chris White Africa channel. So I'm going to wrap up with Giselle.